across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good morning to you. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you for joining us. It's just coming up to 3 minutes past 10 o'clock. I feel like we've already had about a week's news already just this morning. Going to try to get to all the important stuff. And yeah, sod you, it is going to include a bit of Brooklyn as well as part of our international affairs. Brooklyn Beckham, that is. Just bear with me on that one. But yeah, we're going to talk about all the major stuff that is happening today. And a lot of it does seem to involve that bloke called Donald J. Trump. Whether you're listening on DAB Plus Radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, it is great to have your company. Don't forget, the usual shtick I have to say, go to my YouTube page if you miss anything. The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show is what it's called, easy to find. Hit subscribe, you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we are going to discuss Donald Trump accusing Keir Starmer of giving away the Che silence for no reason whatsoever in an act of great stupidity. I mean, all of which is true. We cannot deny that. Camille Badenoch warning Tory MPs last night that she won't tolerate any more psychodrama after recent defections to reform. Good luck with that, Kerry. And whether or not Keir Starmer will opt for an Australia-style social media ban for under-16s, they've opened a consultation on that. Although, as we know, government consultations are really actually listening to the people who respond. And also the latest on Prince Harry's legal case against the publisher of the Daily Mail. I think he's just living off payouts now. I think that his entire income is now just payouts for a legal action against newspapers, as far as I can tell. Joining me for all the chat today, delighted to say, is Philip Ingram, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer. Morning to you.
Good morning.
Before people get very confused,
yes,
it is Tuesday, it's not Thursday.
And I'm confused.
But it's been a bit of swapsy, yeah. So you're here early. And it's very rare, I wouldn't say this, but what a great day to have you in.
The effort I had to put in to get all the global news that was going to come out on Wednesday night changed to Monday night now so that we could talk about it.
Very, very, very thoughtful. Did you say Monday night? It was all happening about 6, 7 a.m. this morning. Question I want to put to our audience, which I will put to you as well. We're going various posts from Donald Trump this morning, as JK's been discussing on breakfast. We're going to work our way through them because they're all pretty darn significant. And if you think they're not, you've not been paying attention. I think you should listen to this show more often. Donald Trump has accused Keir Starmer, I say, of giving away the Che silence for no reason whatsoever in a post in an act of great stupidity, he says. What is your reaction to that? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000, text 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate altogether now. Text costs £1, standard network rate. Message you never join in, Philip. I'd expect that by now. I'm just going to read that full post because I really think it is worth hearing in full. This is one of many posts on Truth Social this morning. Shockingly, our brilliant, in inverted commas, Saki, our brilliant NATO ally, the United Kingdom, is currently planning to give away the island of Diego Garcia, the site of a vital US military base, to Mauritius, and to do so, capital letters, for no reason whatsoever. I mean, every single word of that is absolutely true.
Correct.
There is no doubt, Donald Trump continues, that China and Russia have noticed his act of total weakness.
Yep.
Correct. These are international powers who only recognise strength.
Yep.
Correct. Which is why the United States of America, under my leadership, is now, after only 1 year, respected like never before. He then continues, the UK giving away extremely important land is an act of, again, capital letters, great stupidity.
Yes.
Correct. And is another in a very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired. Couldn't quite see the link there, but there we are. Denmark and its allies in European allies have to do the right thing. Thank you for your attention to this matter. This, by the way, went along with, I think we can put them up there, a couple of different photographs. The first one is of Donald Trump with Marco Rubio, his Secretary of State, and his J.D. Vance, his Vice President, standing behind him, planting an American flag on Greenland, US territory established 2026. I hope we've actually got that image, which we can put up for those of you who are watching on YouTube. Another image, he also, AI is a wonderful thing, image when he was sitting with the EU and NATO leaders in the White House in the Oval Office, and he's got a big picture of Greenland, America and Canada, and Greenland, America and Canada all have US flags. I mean, Philip, help.
If I was Mark Carney, I'd be slightly worried about that at the moment, because it's clearly Donald Trump's got his sights on him next, and he had his sights on Canada
Can't
beforehand.
take Canada.
Well, he can't take Greenland.
Can't? Can? He could. I mean, if America wanted to take the military into Greenland, he could. The question is whether the American military would agree to do that.
Well, yes, and for the same reason, the American military wouldn't try and take Canada. The American military could overwhelm Canada militarily tomorrow without any problems whatsoever.
My understanding is that the reports coming out that the American military to senior levels en masse would simply resign and say we simply will not carry out this.
Interestingly, later today, I'm speaking to a former Supreme Commander of NATO, an American general, and I'm going to ask him that very question.
Do send me a message afterwards and let me know what we'll report back.
But I think Donald Trump is. I don't know why he's got fixated on owning Greenland, because from a defence perspective, which is why he's trying to justify all of this, the 1951 agreement that he's already got with Denmark and with Greenland allows him to put any number of US troops, any US military capability on Greenland without having to refer to the Danish government or the Greenland government beforehand to provide whatever protection Donald Trump wants to put in there. So it's not about security and defence, which is what Donald Trump's trying to say. And everyone I've spoken to, and I've spoken to some very senior American politicians, ambassadors and others, just don't get the logic.
I mean, is the whole thing coming down to this Nobel Peace Prize, which is that Donald Trump, again, a letter that's been leaked, and a letter he wrote to the Norwegian Prime Minister, leaked yesterday, blaming the Norwegian government, which has no control over what the Nobel Peace Prize Committee does, for not giving him the Peace Prize. He's very angry about it. He feels he deserves it. I've got to be honest with you, he did deserve it. Obama got nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize within 6 weeks. The nominations are closed within 6 weeks of he taking the presidency. He did absolutely nothing for world peace. He didn't do anything to stop people being killed en masse in Syria and the like. He was given it. Even he was embarrassed to be nominated and then to get the Peace Prize. I think Donald Trump is fair enough. Of course, the opposition leader in Venezuela has handed it over to him. I mean, and he took it because he has no class.
But have you seen the memes that have come out of that?
Yes.
He's now the Wimbledon women's champion. He's now
exactly. But it's awful. He did say, he says he no longer feels an obligation to think purely of peace. He's committed to these tariffs on the UK, 7 other NATO nations, on all goods and services, unless they back him on Greenland. That's not necessarily going to happen, but
he's lost it.
But there's going to be a meeting. Well, we know everyone's going to be meeting in Davos, apart from Keir Starmer. Okay, so he's not going to be going there. The 1 year that he doesn't go, he said in that interview a few years ago, do you prefer Westminster, Davos? Oh, Davos, he said, which I thought was very telling. Yeah. He's now being told off for going to Davos. So he goes like a year or two ago when, just the Belgians and the, and I don't know, God knows who else, Tonga was there. But this year when every major leader's going to be there, he's not there. So he needs to get his backside onto a plane and get to Davos tomorrow.
The biggest global issue that's going to affect all of the leaders at Davos is going to be discussed at Davos, and he's decided not to be there. This I think sums him up and sums his leadership up.
Well, he did that speech yesterday, and again, we're still talking on Greenland here, but I want to come back to Chagos Islands. But I was watching it. I'm prepping for the show. I'm listening to this speech he gave, and then the question and answer session. And I literally couldn't work out what he'd actually said. And you could see by the fact it barely made the news since, because he didn't. Yeah. He didn't
say anything.
He cancels his events for the day. He makes his very serious statement, and he says nothing because he is an empty suit. There is nothing there.
But he doesn't even present it well. He doesn't come across as someone who's confident and give the listening audience confidence, and it's quite certain that all the journalists that were sitting in the audience didn't have confidence in what he was saying.
But there's also, there's no way he's saying, look, can everyone calm down? The EU is talking about this trade bazooka. Now, they've got a lot more power than us because there's more of them. That's how the world works. But this is about actually hitting US tech companies. Keir Starmer was quite right. A trade war is in no one's interest. It's not in our consumer interest. It's not in American consumer interest or European. He's basically saying, can everyone calm down? I'm all in favour of that. You can talk. We know you can talk Donald Trump down. We know you can talk him up. He basically says the thing that the last person in the room said to him. We know that.
The EU is in a strong position to fight a trade war, but we're in a strong position as well. UK as a country owns more US debt than any other country, and therefore we started selling that debt off from what I understand, I'm not an economist, but if we sold that off,
Neither is Rachel Reeves.
well, exactly, at a fraction of the price, it could completely destroy the US economy. So Donald Trump...
Really?
Yeah, Donald Trump...
We ain't going to do anything like that.
No, we're not going to, because this is...
We'll sell our own gold off and then view in our economy. That's how we do things around this way.
This is above one man. This is one man that's pushing all of this through. So the relationship that there is with the United States at a political level below Donald Trump and at a working level is completely different.
Yeah, and we can see that even in Congress, can't we? Republicans and Democrats not happy about this. And even like the trade tariffs, there's going to be a vote, well, there's a decision by the Supreme Court next week, and we're told it's very likely they'll say, look, you haven't got the power. But this is the thing. This is all going off. Donald Trump, he does this. He takes the thing off the grenade, and he that's how technical
pulls the pin out.
That's the word. Pin.
Pin out of the grenade.
Got a military man in the studio. Pulls the pin out, throws the grenade in, and he goes, "Ha ha! Everyone's paying attention to me." He creates chaos, and he wants to do a deal. I don't know what the deal is. Media. President Macron, he wrote a text message. I think this is one of the most significant things. He is revealing photographs of text messages from world leaders. If world leaders feel they can't have an honest conversation with the president and keep it quiet, that is very dangerous.
Exactly.
People need to have, that's why you can't have full freedom of information on every diplomatic case. You need to have private things. It starts, my friend, we are totally in line on Syria. We can do great things on Iran. I do not understand what you're doing in Greenland. Let us try to build great things. Talking about setting up a G7 meeting after Davos in Paris on Thursday, have dinner together. In fact, the Ukrainians, the Russians, I mean, that's the sort of backdoor diplomacy we need them to be doing. But the mention of the Ukrainians is a crucial point, is that the biggest fear in Europe is Donald Trump could go, well, you won't help me in Greenland. I end all my help for Ukraine, and that include arms sales. Yeah, what happens then?
The reality is, I think we overplay the level of US support for Ukraine as being more important than it actually is. The critical bit within it is US intelligence support. Now, the French are now allegedly providing more intelligence support to Ukraine than the Americans are. And it's the use of what is called ITAR-controlled material in Western weapons. So those are things that are subject to US export controls because they're using classified US technologies. And that's why the Storm Shadow missile has to get US clearance to be fired into Russia, because the guidance systems on it use US military GPS satellites, which are different to the ones that you have putting your car around the place. And that's where the difficulty comes in. And some of the logistic support. If the US pulled out and stopped their support for Ukraine tomorrow and gave nothing, would it impact the war? It would elongate it. Would it mean Ukraine is going to fail? No.
Okay,
Europe
that is very good to know. Right, okay, let's come back to Chagos. Because everything, this is all linked. It's like, you do this for me, and this is how world affairs
everything
matter.
Is linked around the world.
Let's all stop that pretending. But I mean, the people who are absolutely laughing into their cornflakes this morning over the splits between the US and the EU and us, over every single aspect, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's over the Greenland and indeed Chagos, are of course the Russians and the Chinese. They are absolutely keeling over laughing. Now, what Donald Trump, I read that post out, what Donald Trump had to say about Chagos Islands Diego Garcia, suggests to me, A, this is the first time he's heard about it, which is a worry. The White House, against, all better judgment, signed off on this and basically they haven't got a problem, because I think a lot of us who thought that the giving away of the Chagos Islands to the Mauritius was an insane move, and of course the US would block it because of this Diego Garcia military base, which has been used. I'm sure you can explain to audience in very crucial sorties, to the
it's more vital than just as an air base.
It's a very significant base, and we thought the Americans would block it. They haven't. Now, this has been going through Parliament. Lots of fuss about this. It's a recommendation from Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, who basically, as far as we can tell, has put a spell on Keir Starmer and gets anything he wants. There's this absurd, absolute nonsense claim that, we've got no choice legally, the international law. There's no,
that's wrong.
It's absolutely, you can, I'm sure you explain this well. It's absolute nonsense, but we're going to go ahead. It's been in the Lords. The Lords have tried to block it, tried to delay it. That hasn't been, I think, enough done. I think there should be more done by the Lords to try and stop this. But if Donald Trump says, I don't want this to go ahead, is this our best hope of this insane deal where we end up paying hundreds of millions, even billions of pounds to basically to give away something we own to someone who has no right to it.
To pay for someone to take something that they've no right to, that belongs to us at the moment. That is a strategic base that the Americans are occupying, but is part of the Five Eyes network that is critical.
What's it being used for?
Not just from the airbase perspective, but it's also a communications hub. It communicates with satellites in space and highly classified satellites
in the middle of the ocean.
In the middle of the ocean. It is something that has got electronic sniffing capability, intelligence gathering capability in an area that is where China is expanding, one of the biggest trade routes that there is in the world and impacting the world, and a number of other capabilities that are there. It is critical to the wider intelligence network. That's why China wants to get close to it. And for Keir Starmer not to recognise that Donald Trump is focused on owning territory and therefore to give it away. For Keir Starmer then to turn around and say Donald Trump supports what he's doing. Well, it's quite clear Donald Trump isn't. So either Donald Trump's lying or Keir Starmer's lying. Well, Keir Starmer's got a history of lying to us on so many things. I tend to believe Donald Trump in this one. And why we didn't, if we want to get rid of it because it's too much of an administrative headache for the UK, just sell it to the Americans who would have paid us tens of billions.
There's a lot of talk about the Czechoslovakians. I'm sorry, I just don't think this there are a handful of people who actually lived on it.
But on principle, this is the other important thing that's in there. Keir Starmer's turning around and saying Greenland, and there's a handful of Greenlanders.
57,000.
Yes, less than 100,000. But he wants them to have the say over what happens in Greenland, but he's not interested in engaging with the Czechoslovakians.
But this is a British territory.
It is a British territory, but this is where the optics of it when it comes out, and Donald Trump sitting looking at it.
But at the end of this is a human rights set of nonsense. The idea that Mauritius has no claim, they've never owned this island, it's got no claim to it. Mauritius is totally under the thumb of the Chinese. This is clearly a matter of national security, nothing to discuss.
And the international law bit that they keep talking about is a non-binding UN ruling on something, and it
by
says
a load of third world banana republic
exactly,
countries.
says it's
I'm sorry, I don't
of,
care what these people think about anything.
Of which Russia and China were senior partners in it. And the second thing is they then try and quote, whenever that's quoted, something to do with the controlling the electromagnetic spectrum and suggesting that the Mauritians could close it down with the Chinese and others. No, they can't. It is irrelevant. That does not apply.
What? I mean, see what I mean? This is just the news just all come out from Donald Trump's post on his True Social website. What happens next? Okay, I think Keir Starmer was going to turn up to Davos. B, I think there'll probably be some sort of meetings and some sort of efforts behind the scenes. C, I mean, Ursula von der Leyen is speaking at Davos. Of course she is. I mean, where else would she rather be? She's just said it's time to build a new independent Europe. Well, good luck with that, love, but you're going to have to spend a lot more on defence, and you're also going to have an economy that can function. So you drop your net zero, drop your your nonsense. I mean, I'm sorry. Europe is kidding itself if it thinks it's... OK, we are more powerful than Russia if we want to be, but at the end of the day, there's no will. We haven't got the fighting forces, most of us, and we haven't got the military capability to take on Russia.
We have. Yes.
For a couple of weeks.
No. We do have the military capability to take on Russia because Russia is in a severely weakened position at the moment militarily with what it's committed to Ukraine.
Russia battle hardened.
No, not compared to the training that we have.
Okay.
And
reassuring.
You've got Russia relying on 80% of its artillery ammunition coming from North Korea. For goodness sake, no.
Okay.
I wouldn't stand beside a gun with a very, very long lanyard and pull it if there's a North Korean shell in it. It's more likely to go bang in the gun.
And we see actually a lot of those injuries.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's a bit more reassuring. But at the end of the day, negative view
What?
of the
There's
Prime Minister.
25%
No,
have
just
got less
remember,
than negative?
18% have a positive view.
What?
I mean, I know, we need to talk about mental health in this country.
We do. Drugs. It could be 18% are on drugs.
People are drinking too much, taking too many hallucinogenic drugs, and
exactly.
they urgently need to go and see a doctor. If 80%, I know I've got a lot of people in my family who are staunch, die-hard Labour voters. People they clicked for jumble sales. I mean, my family are all over the place on their political viewpoints. I mean, honestly, some of them blame me personally for Brexit. I mean, like, I'd love to think I had any impact there.
It was your fault. Of course it was your fault.
I'm happy for it to be my fault. But I mean, I think even they would struggle to have a positive view of Keir Starmer. And they were the people saying, oh, this guy's great. This is great white hope for the party.
Yeah. Mind you, 18%. There could be 18% who just because they've come into this country and they don't understand what's going on and they haven't got a clue who people are and they just tick the box at the top of the thing.
Yeah, I mean, just basically call the men in white coats. Anyway,
exactly.
We're going to take a quick break. I want to hear from you on anything, on everything, particularly on what Donald Trump had to say about Keir Starmer giving away the Chagos Islands, an act of great stupidity. What do you think happens next? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Don't forget, Andrew Rossendale is coming up very soon. And we're going to talk about Harry's latest battles with the press. This is Talk.
The UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back. This is Talk. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. We are the home of common sense, certainly. We're hoping to get more common sense on the phones than we're seeing from any of our political leaders at the moment. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000, to have your say, particularly on what Donald Trump has said in a Truth Social post early this morning about Chagos Islands and the giving away for no reason whatsoever by Keir Starmer in an act of great stupidity. Pav is in Harrow, wants to have his say. Good morning to you, Pav.
Good morning, Julia.
What do you make of all of this?
Good to hear a voice of common sense. I don't always agree with you, but one thing that I've been absolutely flabbergasted by is the media round and, frankly, the legal literacy that a lot of your colleagues in the media seem to demonstrate. Now, let's just look at this, right? The ICJ ruling itself, as well as the subsequent ruling by the Special Chamber of International Tribunal for the Law of Sea, neither of them are legally binding. I really don't know what more to say to people who keep banging on and saying, oh, it's an advisory opinion.
We have to do it. We have to do it. We don't.
But Julia, here's the hypocrisy, and I said this to Ian yesterday, and it really annoys me. The same people who today are championing self-determination rights of Greenland and Chagos, I'm not trying to detract away from that, are some of the very people who spent years when another country, I'm trying to think which one, Julia, in 2016, used the very same process and called them thick, inward-looking racist. So there's the hypocrisy on that level. Well, let's not go there.
Oh, no, let's go there. I completely agree with you.
Well, but this is the thing, but this is the point. Even if these people, the journalists, okay, people can say that they're not legally trained, fine. But if you just take a cursory look into the way that particular bench was composed, right? It was a 13-1 decision. I'll keep it succinct for you. Have a look at Patrick Robinson, who subsequently has come out and asked for $18 billion in slavery and reparation. Yeah. Have a look at Ji Han-Kim, who was the same Chinese diplomat and foreign affairs ministry representative who sided with Russia over Ukraine. Yeah. And then, of course, have a look at the oral proceeding itself for those who are interested between September 3rd of September, 6th of September 2018. 21 United Nations states and the African Union petitioned to have this decision. Now, with all due respect, this isn't a decision by democracy. We're not taking votes on what should happen. And I'm just flabbergasted, and Darren Jones has come on this morning.
Yeah, he's the chief secretary, the
He has.
government.
He's on the media round. I don't know, Julia, whether he's lying or whether he's mistaken and incompetent. I don't know which one's better.
Could always be a bit of both, I find, with government ministers. But look, you know a hell of a lot more about this than certainly they appear to do. Let's face it, Lord Homer, the Attorney General, tells the Prime Minister to do something, he does it. Lord Homer is obsessed with this. He's obsessed with giving away everything. But at the end of the day, this is about, Chinese and Russian interests, largely Chinese interests, where they just constantly just work using the international bodies that we put so much faith in the West. And they have basically just thought to them, you may as well allow FIFA to have a vote on these things. It's that corrupt and that unreliable. What finally do you think? Do you think anything will change as a result of this?
No, but the concerning thing is they keep banging on about the deal signed. There's ratification procedures in place.
Yeah.
It hasn't been ratified. It won't change because they're ideologues, Julia. And unfortunately with ideologues, as we know with Stonewall and the other nonsense they spouted for years, they will turn around, they will use confirmation bias at will, because when reality bites, all they can turn around and do is shrug their shoulders, move on and deflect. And I'm afraid that's what they're going to do. But just quickly,
very quickly.
Let's not turn around and let the Conservatives off, because it was in 2022 that the Conservatives, in their emasculated nature, used this open negotiations. So Labour and the Conservatives are essentially treading the same path.
Yeah, although they didn't sign it off, but they shouldn't have even had the negotiation. They shouldn't even have the talk. Said, no, not happening, end of. Pav, amazing call. Thank you so much. So much more knowledge than lots of so-called experts talking about this. Matthew is in Warrington. Matthew, you're going to have to keep this brief, my darling. What do you make of this tweet about the Chagos Islands?
I think Donald Trump's vetoed it is the final nail in Keir Starmer's coffin. Obviously, a domino effect now. I think he'll backtrack on that. If he goes to China today and grants that the embassy, what's the name in London, if he grants that, he's going to get ripped a new one again off Trump. And if he backtracks on that, I think the Labour MPs will start turning against him. I think he's a dead man walking now. He's very interesting, Matthew. That is a very, very, very good point. Now, we were told, we expect the Chinese embassy decision, which has been delayed to happen today. A lot of reported that it's happening today. But yesterday we were told it had been pushed into the long grass again because it's all too awkward. What's he going to do if he grants it? What's Trump going to say to him? Because he's just sold him down. He's fitted him up a kipper. Yeah, we can't trust him. We can't trust it. He keeps going on about Russia and this, that, and the other. We're so in the pocket of China. Yeah, it's frightening. I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. Matthew in Warrington, thank you so much. 10:32 is the time. I'm going to take a very quick break. Then we're going to be back with the new Reform UK MP, Andrew Rossendale, who has cited the Chagos Islands giveaway, sell away, buy away, whatever it ended up being, as one of the reasons why he had left the Tories. We'll find out why next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:34 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Philip Ingram is still with me as well, of course, former senior military intelligence officer. Great day as always to have Philip here to explain stuff to us. Although I have to say, our callers seem a lot more knowledgeable than most of the MPs and even the Prime Minister. Absolutely. Pav and Matthew on international affairs. Well, here's someone who's definitely been keeping a close watch on particularly the Chagos Islands, and that is Andrew Rossendale. He was, until the weekend, a Tory MP for Romford and a former shadow and foreign minister. He is now one of the latest Reform UK MP and joins us now. A very good morning to you, Andrew.
Julia, good to see you again.
Thank you so much for joining us. Let's just talk about, first of all, Chagos Islands, because you cited the Tory position on the Chagos Islands as one of the reasons for your defection. Can you explain to us why?
So I have been actively engaged in the campaign for the Chagos Islands in my entire time in Parliament over 25 years. This is a British sovereign territory with a major security base, which we lease to the Americans. However, the Foreign Office have for many years tried to puppeteer a policy of letting Mauritius take the British Indian Ocean territory away from us. I opposed this throughout, and I believe that the Chagos Islands belong to the Chagossian people. Like with the Falkland Islands, like with Gibraltar, like all of our overseas territories, it is the people whose ancestral home is those islands that should determine the future.
Weren't most Chagossians moved off those islands when that Diego Garcia base was?
Yes, they were forcibly, shamefully
That's what life was like when these things, wasn't it 1950s, was it? These things happened?
It was the late 60s, early 70s.
Late 60s, early 70s. Well,
okay. So I'm sorry, it wasn't acceptable. It was a complete denial of human rights and self-determination. Julia, we had lots of colonies all around the world, but every single one of them had self-determination. They could choose whether to be independent, become a republic, stay a British territory, whatever. This is the one colony that we denied the rights of the people.
So how do you balance the rights of Chagossians with the needs for us to keep this vital strategic base?
So the Chagossians want to stay British. The reason why this whole mess has occurred is the Conservative government started the whole thing. I opposed it from day one, argued against it, but they just brushed it away and carried on with this negotiation till David Cameron put it on ice. Good for him. But previously our policy was not to give self-determination and to eventually hand it to Mauritius. I opposed that all the way through. So Conservatives started this whole rotten mess. Labour got in and they carried on with it.
And then there was
they made it worse.
The issue with Lord Herman and that, but then there was issue last week in the House of Lords in terms of the Lords trying to kind of delay this, to allow this bill to hand over Chagos and then again, it's not a hand over. Mauritius never owned the Chagos Islands, and then pay them for the privilege of then leasing back our own territory, this air base. But the Lords were supposed to be trying to delay this until basically it got talked out, and then that didn't happen.
The Lords should have taken it to the wire, fought to the bitter end. This was not in the Labour manifesto. All normal conventions don't apply in that situation. So the Conservative line should have been, we will fight it to the bitter end. This is a total betrayal, not only of our national security, of the British taxpayer paying 35 billion or whatever it's going to be, but also the most thing for me is the absolute betrayal of the Chagossian people.
And do you think that
it to the bitter end?
Do you think that Donald Trump's posts on this, I mean, among the many posts, I mean, things could get lost, but of course this one is specifically about Keir Starmer. Apparently his big buddy, Keir Starmer thinks he's one of the, the Trump whisperers, and he's got that close access. And he's basically in Keir Starmer giving away the Chagos Islands for no reason whatsoever. And he says in an act of great stupidity. Do you think this changes anything?
Yes, I do. And Nigel Farage has been working away, speaking to all of his many contacts in Washington, because he has influence there, which unfortunately a lot of our politicians don't have. I'm not sure that Keir Starmer has anything like the influence or respect from Donald Trump that he thinks he's got. And the statement issued by the president today shows that at last the president's woken up to this. And I think the Greenland situation has played a part, actually, because how can you possibly say there is sovereignty for the Greenland and the Greenlandic people, which is a small, in terms of population, a small territory, but you can't have the rules don't apply to the Chagossian people. So I think the United States president's woken up. Thank God he's done just in time, and the government should now dump this whole shocking betrayal.
This is definitely 11th hour. I mean, Nigel Farage, leader of your new party, has written, thank goodness Trump has vetoed the surrender of the Chagos Islands. We were always expecting that it would. White House, of course, previously had actually said it was fine. In another post, he wrote, the Americans have woken up to the fact they were lied to. They were told the UK had no choice but to surrender the Chagos Islands. This was simply not true, and now they are angry with us. Again, it sounds like people haven't been doing their homework. Kemi Badenoch, your old party leader, said paying to surrender the Chagos Islands is not just an act of stupidity, but of complete self-sabotage. And no doubt at all about all of that. We'll see what happens there. Let's also talk about your leaving the Conservative Party. You've been a lifelong Tory. You've been one of the longest-standing Conservative MPs, MP for Romford. You say it was a Chagos issue. Was that not something you could stay forward about, or were there other issues that also made you say, do you know what? I think I've actually got views that are much closer to Reform than they are to Tory now.
So I was Reform before Reform ever existed in terms of its political stance, and I'd argue for those style of policies in the Conservative Party for many years. We should be a proper Thatcherite Conservative Party, but unfortunately in those 14 years we seem to have lost our way dreadfully. And yes, you're quite right. There were two issues that for me in the last week or two that really upset me. Firstly was the Chagos situation. I felt the Conservatives hadn't really fought it the way we should have done. But secondly, the way Robert Jenrick was thrown under a bus last week. I know that it's complicated, and
if you find out someone's going to leave, I thought she played an absolute blinder.
Well, I disagree. Julia, Robert represented vast swathes of our members and supporters. She should have phoned him up, pleaded with him not to go, met him personally, talked it through. To lose Robert, frankly, means we have no one on the right of the party now who potentially could become the leader, seriously. And it's almost like it feels like it's the end of the Conservative Party being anything like a Reform-style party. Now, had we been a Reform-style party, Reform wouldn't exist. Had we not been so mushy during those 14 years and had, well,
if you'd done any of the things you said you'd do, that would have been a good, instead of the opposite.
The net zero madness we sucked up, the immigration, the woke political correctness, we didn't really fight that back. Nope. We didn't reverse any of Blair's constitutional vandalism. I mean, it goes on and on and on. The mistakes and the failures and the missed opportunities. I'm very frustrated, have been for a long time, but I have been a loyal Conservative for 45 years. 25 years as MP, but enough is enough. It's time to put our country first. And I think Nigel is the only person who's able and got the gumption and the energy and the patriotism to do this in a serious way, because we do need radical reform in our country today.
And you say the gumption. I think a lot of people make that point that actually Kemi Badenoch will say the right things. There may be issues that, like the wokedom and things like that she's spoken out on long before many others. I would say long before actually a lot of things that Nigel Farage had, but, on trans and things like that, where it affects women. But lots of people do feel, who've voted Tory many times, but perhaps either voted Reform or didn't vote at all at the last general election in July 24, that, doesn't matter what the Tories say, because they're not going to do what they say, like Boris Johnson, take back control, and then basically having the Boris wave. I mean, literally, come on in, anybody from a third world country, come and live and work in our country on minimum wage, and we'll subsidise you. I mean, I think that kind of was really the last straw for a lot of people.
You're right, Julia, and I think that when I speak to people in Romford, and I do all the time, they're lifelong Conservatives. They've always voted for me. They're saying to me constantly, "We feel let down. We feel that we voted loyally for the Conservative Party, but when you're in power, you just didn't do the things you said you would do, and people don't trust us anymore. They're disillusioned."
Shouldn't you hold a by-election? I said this to Robert Jenrick yesterday. I think if there's not an election due within the next year, you should hold a by-election. You were elected, whether people support your policy or not, you were elected with a blue rosette, not a turquoise rosette.
There's only one election I'm focusing on, and that is in 2.5, 3 years' time, winning the general election.
Yeah, but you're going to be sitting as an MP for a party that was not elected to your seat for that time.
I am the same person they voted for, with the same beliefs, the same values. This is a move to ensure that at the next general election, I'm part of a new movement that's going to rescue Britain from the calamity of this Labour government. No more distractions, pointless, costly by-elections. Let's get on with the job.
I don't care how much they cost. Democracy is expensive. Otherwise, we just have a totalitarian state and never bother having elections.
As you know, Julia, in our country, you vote for an individual, and I was elected by the people of Romford, and I represent their views. And that's one of the reasons I've gone to Reform, because I speak to everyone in Romford, and they all say to me, "Andrew, you've got to do this." So many have said that to me.
So you've actually had support on this. Well, in that case, you wouldn't be worried about having a by-election then, would you?
I'm worried about wasting time when there's more
wasting time? Democracy's wasting time?
we're going around in circles.
No, we're not. We're not. You're giving me lots of different reasons, wasting time, money.
Election.
I think democracy matters. I think that people should be. I think we all know people technically vote for an individual, but actually a lot of people vote with the they look at the rosette.
Democracy does matter, and that's why we have to get this terrible government out, because they're undermining our democracy. It's this government that's abolishing elections, for goodness sake.
Just one final question I want to ask you about. Nisa Nandi at the weekend basically didn't deny that she'd said that a Farage government would be a fascist government. She said, oh, it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, quacks like a duck, or whatever. She wouldn't use the actual word in public, but apparently did use it in private. What do you say to her and others who claim that Nigel Farage and the Reform Party are fascists?
How dare she? How dare she insult not just Nigel, but how dare she insult the millions of decent, patriotic, hard-working British people who feel like they want to vote Reform because they love their country and want to see real change. It doesn't make them fascists. It doesn't make them far right. All this name-calling is an absolute disgrace. It's actually very un-British. If you disagree with someone, you have polite debate. You don't name-call. You don't attack people and use language like that. And so Lisa Nandy should be utterly ashamed of herself in doing so.
Andrew Rossendale, great to talk to you. Thank you so much. The new Reform UK MP for Romford, a defector from the Tories. Philip Ingram, just your response to general conversation there?
Well, a number of things that came out of that. One, I think what Nigel Farage has got that Keir Starmer hasn't got and Kemi Badenoch hasn't really got is charisma. And the second thing that came out is Reform, the new Thatcherites.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's my thing. So people say, well, Reform are far right. They're clearly not. Reform is just where the Conservative Party was 20 years ago. Again, in the middle, in the centre ground of British politics, in my view, there is nothing extreme about having border control and putting people in prison who commit crimes and it's requiring people to work
and that's what
if they're able-bodied. There's nothing far right or fascist about any of those policies.
And Labour and the Tories are the uni party.
Yeah, there we are. 10:46 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to talk about Prince Harry's latest battles with the media, with media lawyer Mark Stevens. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. Right, well, let's turn our attention to one of the many people in the public eye these days who has an awful lot of a problem with how they're portrayed in the media and how information is got to the public about them. No, we're not talking about Brand Beckham right now. This time we're talking about the spare, the heir spare. That's Prince Harry. He is back in court, back in Britain. The only reason he ever seems to come to this country now for yet another court case where he's battling with the British media. This time it is the owners of the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday. And he, according to the court, the Royal Court, the High Court of the Royal Court's Justice yesterday, has been made to feel paranoid beyond belief by alleged unlawful information gathering by the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday over a 20-year period. They, of course, have denied those charges, but Prince Harry is among 7 high-profile claimants, including Sir Elton John and Liz Hurley, alleging grave breaches of privacy. Well, let's talk about this with media lawyer Mark Stevens now. Good morning to you.
Morning, Julia.
Morning. Another day in court for Harry. He's already, he won a case against Mirror Group.
He's keeping us lawyers in business.
He is. Well, there's that one lawyer who represents virtually everybody making these cases. I mean, that man, if he doesn't have a castle in the country by now and 5 homes around the world, I'd be very surprised. The fees he's charging.
I think he has several castles and extensions.
There we are. But of course, there was a settlement with the owners actually of Talk, the owners of The Sun, News Group newspapers. There have been settlements, there have been victories. This is, I think, the third big and final case. What does this case actually consist of on Prince Harry's side?
Well, this isn't really about celebrity gossip. It's about whether private investigators were in newspapers to dig up material that they say wrecked their lives. You reference Prince Harry saying he was paranoid. I mean, 14 specific articles going back as far as 2001 right up to 2013. And really, this isn't about whether we like the Duke of Sussex or indeed the other claimants. It's about how they were, how those stories were obtained. And really interestingly, in this particular case, you fairly said that the Mail Group said they utterly and ambiguously refute these preposterous smears. But what they didn't mention is that one of the key witnesses is a private detective called Gavin Burrows. Remember that name because we're going to hear a lot more about him. He originally was described by the claimants as central to the most serious allegations. He made unlawful information, said he'd hacked, blagged,
There was a signed statement from him saying this.
There was. And now his confession was part of what prompted these 7 public figures to go forward. But he's now saying that that particular statement was fabricated and forged. And so the court's going to have to reassess how much weight, if any, can be placed on the broader evidential chain built around this case from the sort of mosaic. They've obviously forensically lost an advantage, and we are going to hear from Gavin Burrows, and he will be cross-examined very firmly, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually often for all sides, these things can actually be very, very difficult. Things come out that all sides don't want to come out. But again, a lot of these celebrities, and they've claimed, and they've claimed this in other cases as well, it's been Harry on his own in these cases, that actually, stories are coming out about them. They cannot work out. The only person they told was X or Y. They can't work out how it's made it into the papers, and then then they assume that someone close to them is selling stories to the media. Now, the defence, actually, a lot of the media that have had battles with Prince Harry in court has said, well, yeah, actually, your friends and your family were often selling stories to the media, and we know that's what's happened many, many times. But we had that case, and a lot of the allegations that Harry had made against the Mirror, that there was a big loss on that. The judge ruled, and the Mirror lost. There was the settlement, and there was an apology from the owners of The Sun, not just the news, well, the owners of The Sun, but activities of, again, private investigators, not staff, not in the direct pay of that organisation, but of private investigators. So this is similar to that, isn't it? That it wasn't journalists doing it, it was private investigators doing it. And is the allegation that there was sort of, everyone was pretending to turn a blind eye, or that editors knew, or what is being claimed in court so far?
Well, interestingly, David Sherborne, the barrister,
the one who's got the 7 castles now, that one.
Yeah, the 7 castles and the extensions. David Sherborne made the point to a very experienced judge, Sir Matthew Nicklin KC, who's hearing this case, that essentially there was a mosaic of tiles. No individual tile reveals the truth, but together they show a picture. And essentially what he says is there were journalists with known history of unlawful news gathering, invoices paid to private investigators, and the question is, what does a private investigator do that an investigative journalist can't? But perhaps most importantly, it's impossible stories. So something that wasn't known. And I think this is the point you were mentioning, Julia, about things that were only known to a very select group of people. And so the Mail is going to have to show how they got the information.
But a lot of this is quite a while away. And I know, when I was a news reporter, I was required, legally to keep my notebooks for 6 years. A lot of this goes way back for them. People have moved house, they've got divorced, they're, thrown out some rubbish from the garage. Having a lot of these records might be a bit difficult.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, why this case is all about inference. And they have to prove, one side or the other, that it's more probable than not that either there was or was not phone hacking. Yeah. And in many ways, the burden is going to be, if the claimants win just one case, then they will be vindicated. And if associated newspapers, the Mail on Sunday, win, then we will know that they were truly clean and that they were like the broadsheet newspapers and didn't indulge in phone hacking. Yeah,
indeed. And it's fascinating how this has spread over the period of time. I mean, some of these claims, we are talking about, some very serious allegations of, you just get all denied by the Mail group, of intrusive behaviour. Just briefly, just finally, for Prince Harry, we know there's, he has taken, he's won some big payouts on this in settlements. A lot of this stuff is not made public, but a lot of these people can't resist telling somebody in the pub, and then it all eventually comes out. But huge sums, 7-figure sums repeatedly. I'm wondering if this is now his entire income. But this is the final case. Once this is over, does this sort of pave the way for sort of a bit of a rapprochement? Because basically he's been at war with all of the British media, hasn't he?
Yes, he has, and he's sort of doing the dirty work that the royal family haven't been prepared to do.
Well, they just do deals each time, don't they? Let's be honest.
Exactly. But at the end of this sort of 9 weeks, in 9 weeks' time when this trial's over, we'll know whether the biggest publisher is vindicated and truly stayed clean, or indeed whether Prince Harry was vindicated in bringing these cases.
Will we, or will there be a settlement? Often these things end up being settled, don't they?
I'd be very surprised to see a settlement because the purpose of bringing these cases and the reason that this is essentially a test case for a lot more people who sit behind this is to show that there was actually some degree of phone hacking at associated newspapers. They, of course, deny it. Yeah. So Matthew Nicklin Casey will decide on the evidence and his good sense.
It's going to be fascinating. Mark Stevens, media lawyer, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate that. Philip Ingram, these cases come again and again. It's almost like the only times we see Prince Harry. He's battling in the courts against his own father's government over his security or against the media. And he has an axe to grind. And I think, understandably, he's always blamed the media for the death of his mother. And there is a lot going on there.
Yeah, but we focus on Prince Harry a lot. You look at the other claimants that are in this case as well, and they bring an awful lot more gravitas to it. Harry brings this label that gets the clickbait. Well, Baroness Lawrence,
Lorraine Lawrence,
Liz Hurley, Sir Elton John, and David Furnish. Sadie Frost, David Blunkett. It's going from politics to pop stars to
no, it's Sir Simon Hughes. I don't think David Blunkett's involved in this one.
He was quoted in the paper, as was some other people associated with the channel that we have here. There's an awful lot more there. There's 7 people in it, and Harry gets the headlines, gets the clickbait. But there are other people. But there's other people, and there'll be more substance.
And some of them are very rich, and some of them aren't, and that will affect it. However, here's the thing: an awful lot of these people, we know that they're PRE people and themselves have been giving stuff to the media again and again about their person. Not saying it would justify any illegal intrusion if that were the case, and that's been denied. But an awful lot of them also have friends who routinely sell stuff to the media.
And this is where Mark Stevens brought it out, and he said the mosaic of tiles, and that's intelligence gathering, that's information gathering, and it's trying to get something.
My view is if there has been legal wrongdoing, whichever organisation, absolutely, there needs to be compensation.
It'll be interesting to see.
Oh, it's going to be absolutely fascinating, this case, and again, this is apparently the last of these big ones with Prince Harry. But anyway, later on in the show, yes, I am going to talk about battles over Brooklyn. We're going to be. He's looking very confused. It's not international affairs, Philip Ingram. It's the battle over Brand Beckham. Much more important stuff. He's got his head in his hands. We're going to be talking more about Chagos. We're going to be talking more about Green. And we're talking more about whether or not the Keir Starmer, for once, should actually be in Davos, which is where all the power brokers of the world are going to be this week. But he's not planning to be there. We'll talk about that. This is Talk. Very, very good morning to you. This is Talk, the home of common sense. It's fast approaching 3 minutes past 11. It feels like we've already done a day of news already, but no, it is still a morning. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk, the home of common sense. And whether you are listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, very much appreciate you joining us. I must say, in the last half hour or so, we had a little bit of a glitch on our YouTube page. You might have lost us for just a minute or two. Apologies for that. Oh, obviously working again very soon afterwards. Coming up in this hour, we are going to be discussing more about Donald Trump and the Chagos Islands and what he's had to say about Keir Starmer. We're all going to be discussing Keir Starmer urging the EU not to launch a trade war in response to the president's threat of tariffs over Greenland, and whether or not Keir Starmer will opt for an Australian-style social media ban for under 16s. The government's opening a consultation on that, which is weird because they said they weren't going to do it, now they are. So is it another U-turn? Who can keep up with the U-turns? We have got a hell of a lot going on today, and I want to hear your thoughts on all of the big stories. Donald Trump has accused Keir Starmer of giving away the Chagos Islands for no reason whatsoever in an act of what he called great stupidity. This on a Truth Social post online. What's your reaction to that? Give us a call on 0344 499 1000. Text us on 87222, or you can get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1, standard network rate message. And as I am reading that, breaking news has just come in. We heard yesterday it might be delayed, but no, finally, the government has, just in the last few moments, approved plans for China's new embassy in London, the one I'll be able to see from out my window on the other side of the Tower of London, despite widespread criticism from MPs and campaigners over its security implications. Let's talk about that first of all. Philip Ingram, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer, joins us today. So if you normally tune in, he's on a Thursday. It is Tuesday. You haven't missed a couple of days, had a long sleep. But I mean, a lot of people were hoping that would be delayed and wouldn't happen. But there's a lot of talk that it was going to happen because, I mean, the Tory government sold them the site and they always said it was for an embassy. First mistake, insane. Yep. This has been delayed. The Tower Hamlets Local East End Council, they had refused to accept the planning applications. We've had loads of revelations about all these redacted planning forms. Not just redacted for us, as in we can't see them. No, the people making the decisions can't see them. And we discovered this was right literally within a metre. One of the walls of the Chinese embassy would be within a metre of some of the most vital communications and security cables in and out of the city of London. Absolutely vital. Secret rooms, numerous secret rooms in the basement. Plans obviously for supercomputers, judging by the aircon units they were suggested they would have. We thought that he might be talked out of it, but there's this idea that actually they've got to build this embassy now and give approval to it, and the government has overruled local planning decision, because otherwise we won't get this trip for Keir Starmer to go to China later this month and get some sort of pathetic trade deal where China dumps all their cheap EVs and solar panels on us. Philip Ingram, this is a disaster for British security.
Yeah, very much so. And you can see the government, earlier on the week, the government rolled out a former senior head of the intelligence agencies, security agencies, to turn around and say, "Oh no, this would make it better." But when you read the detail, it would make it better if China then closed down all of the other little buildings that they've got throughout London and concentrated everything in one place.
And this would be their biggest embassy by far in Europe. It's a super mega embassy.
It's a mega embassy.
A spy hub.
It's a mega embassy in the central location where it can gather the intelligence that is China's #1 priority, and its #1 priority is anything that will give it an economic advantage. And the City of London is one of the premier financial hubs in the globe. So much
and
goes,
our
goes
economy is absolutely reliant on it. It's
Correct.
Not just the taxes they pay.
No.
This is okay. So what is the threat that China could do? Are we going to stop this? Little men in their boiler suits. They're going to be digging through the wall, and they're just going to be they're going to cut those cables, or they're going to be reading those cables.
No, they can read. They'll be able to read the cables. They'll be able to get in without
and
us
getting
noticing.
access to those even by a nanosecond before they reach the city. That could affect trading prices.
Oh, very much so. People
could make billions.
They'll get in a way that we will not know that they are tapping into everything. So they're going to get.
Why aren't those cables secure if they're so
Well,
important?
they are secure, but we're dealing with nation states and the level of technology that can come in. And remember, the cables were laid a couple of years ago. So there's ways of monitoring them, but it's a battle between how you monitor. And I'm not going to go into any real detail here.
Thank you. Save the country.
And how you can access it. It's something that's been going on for decades.
And what will they be able to do with that knowledge, with that communication?
Effectively insider trading, but global corporate countrywide insider trading. So all the sensitive deals that are going on across the City of London, where someone is buying a big corporation, a share price is going to change, an ownership is going to change.
And they'll make money out of that, or they'll get power.
The Chinese will make trillions out of it, and they will have power as well. But because what they'll then be able to do is look at where there are deals that are coming in, see whether a Chinese company can come in and outbid or bid in a different way, see what the criteria are, and get in to do that.
Okay, so
but there's more than that as well, because China is paranoid about security around it. So everyone that lives within different radii of the embassy are going to have everything that they have in their own apartments, their own houses, and all the rest of it, listened into by the Chinese.
Spying on locals.
We know
that's what they do.
All of the time.
And there are people who actually live on the site as well. Again, why did the British government ever sell them this site? I mean, the Americans, who are, depending on who's in power, our greatest allies, security-wise, part of the Five Eyes and all of that, they have got a huge, big embassy. I had a lovely tour of it with the then US ambassador a number of years ago, on the other side of the river. They used to be right in the centre of town near Oxford Street. They've moved somewhere they can have a big site. Surely that's what the Chinese should have been told they should do as well. So why was that site sold when they said it was going to be an embassy? Why have MI5 and MI6 apparently said they're okay with it?
Well, there's been a level of political control over what MI5 and MI6 will say in a public.
So they don't really think it.
So we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Why was it sold? Our diplomatic, and this is where I'm going to come out slightly on the government side. We've got a balance between security and diplomacy, and our governments are focused on short-term diplomacy to make a quick buck during the time that they're in power. They're not focused on the longer-term threat that's there, and that's why the Tory party will have agreed this. Because if we look at our relationship with China over the last 10, 15 years, it's changed. China was our great big friend. There wasn't a problem. We were doing more deals. This was David Cameron.
I always disagreed with that.
Well, exactly. So did anyone with a degree of logic and looking at geopolitics. But he was interested in what he could do in his parliamentary term. And this is where Keir Starmer is making this decision today. He's just off to China. He wants to open doors so that it's going to bring some more
it's going to splat him back in the face.
It will do. But economic advantage to the UK is what he's hoping for, so that the hole he's dug himself, he can try and suggest he's getting out of.
It is extraordinary. Keir Starmer, I know you're probably quite busy. You're probably packing for Davos right now because you realise you should go. A little message to you, Keir Starmer. Whether it's the Chagos Islands and giving them away to a country that has no right to them whatsoever, and paying them for the privilege of renting back, leasing back a crucial military base that we already own, that is, as the President of the United States quite rightly pointed out, great stupidity. It's also great recklessness as well on behalf of our defence and our security of our country and indeed of the Western world, because we know Mauritius is basically in cahoots with China. And then you think it's a great idea to approve a mega Chinese embassy in the heart of London, close to the city, close to these communication and banking networks, where they of course will make huge benefits, as Philip's just been explaining, but will also just put us and our government and our city at great risk. You do that again, and all for a little bit of a benefit, because you're going to go to China, you want to have a trade deal. You know what that trade deal is going to consist of? China selling a whole lot of goods to us, electric vehicles, solar panels, wind turbines, you name it. They're going to sell a whole lot to us at cheap prices. Oh great, why? Because they're built by slave labour using coal-fired plants to create the energy, while we suck up this mad net zero policy. There is not a single policy on which you do not get it wrong. And there is not one. You give away what we own, you pay for the privilege of doing it, you buy stuff from China, which is a hostile nation state, to boost their economy, and you deliberately damage ours under net zero. You give away strategic bases, you give away crucial land at the heart part of London to our enemy. And meanwhile, you talk the talk, but you don't walk the walk when it comes to our defence spending and our proper security. 2.3% of GDP is not enough for us to be spending on defence. You talk about 3% of GDP sometime whenever, when, by the way, judging by your latest poll ratings, mate, you ain't going to be in power. You are not a serious man at a very, very serious time. It's not that you're not doing anything to make us safer. Every act that you carry out as Prime Minister of this country, you make us less safe and less secure. You are a clear and present danger to the security and defence of this nation state. And you need to stop doing that, because you are putting us at risk.
What she said.
Was there any word of that, Philip, that wasn't true?
No, 100%.
This is terrifying stuff.
This is absolutely
terrifying.
It's short-termism. He's not interested in this country. He's interested in trying to save his own bacon by getting one or two little headlines.
No wonder the man is at 75% disapproval ratings, for goodness sake. It's absolutely... Let's go on to Chagos. I mean, where do we even start with this guy? Donald Trump, in a post overnight, I won't read the whole thing over, but he basically has accused Keir Starmer of giving away the Chagos Islands. He says it's for no reason whatsoever, in an act of great stupidity. Now, clearly, Donald Trump has just found out about this because the White House has approved this before, as has the State Department. I think we were all a bit surprised by that. We were rather hoping, were we not, that the White House was going to veto it.
Well, Keir Starmer said that the White House had approved it.
No, there have been statements. No, there have definitely been statements, saying they had no issue with this. Is this a veto? Will it stop it from happening?
Well, it should be a veto, but I think Keir Starmer is blind and deaf, and therefore he's probably going to ignore it. And that's the difficulty. He needs to start to read the tea leaves.
Can he afford to ignore it? Because this is a crucial US air base. This is about our allies working together. This is used by the Americans.
Well, so far he's ignored every other warning sign that's come out from Donald Trump on everything, and he's trying to play this silly game. And the Chinese embassy is the classic one, because Donald Trump a few days ago came out and said that was a silly move. Yeah. So he doesn't.
He's right about some stuff. He really is, isn't he? I mean, it's very interesting, the reaction on the Chagos issue. Nigel Farage has said, thank goodness Donald Trump has vetoed the surrender of the Chagos Islands. The Americans have woken up to the fact they were lied to. They were told the UK had no choice but to surrender the Chagos Islands. This was simply not true, and now they're angry with us. Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, has said paying to surrender the Chagos Islands is not just an act of stupidity, but of complete self-sabotage. Look, it has been very, very clear, and we had a caller, Pav, earlier. You absolutely knew stuff, certainly more than government ministers on the round today, that the International Court of Justice ruling and the latest tribunal ruling, they're not legally binding. Yeah. Everyone talks about these courts and things, and again, the people have completely and utterly lied about what, for instance, various rulings on Israel have been over Gaza and the like. I mean, people literally make this stuff up, but people forget a lot of these rulings. And again, even if the UN decides something, you've got Russia and China pulling strings. You've got a load of, frankly, corrupt, kleptocratic, third world countries putting their little judges, you wouldn't recognise as a judge in this country, on these panels. This is about power plays. This is about, economic and strategic and defence advantages. It's got nothing to do with rights and wrongs. And I'm sorry, I've said a million times, over Maduro, Venezuela, this idea of this international rule of law is a little bit of nonsense, because it's actually the rule of might, and it always has been. We've been kidding ourselves. We have absolutely no requirement whatsoever to hand over the Chagos Islands to anyone, let alone Mauritius, who have never owned them in their lives. And when Mauritius is in absolutely hand in glove with China, because China is part of their Belt and Road policy, and it's basically been going around the world, particularly in Africa, they basically said, would you like some investment? Would you like some... Should we build you a new sewage plant? Should we help you out? Should we help out your government, your kleptocratic, corrupt, useless government? Not saying that government is, but an awful lot of governments are. And then they get the investment, and then they start pulling the strings. And they're getting out all the minerals, all the ores. I mean, we have been asleep at the wheel.
The specific legal ruling had a clause in it that excluded the UK. It's non-binding, but it also had a clause in that excluded, set the conditions to exclude the UK's ownership of the Chagos Islands. So there was nothing in there. Yeah. And we have to remember the Chinese aren't thinking in parliamentary terms. They're thinking 20, 25 years out. Yeah. And therefore they're manoeuvring everything to do that. Whereas our government is only thinking in what's tomorrow morning's headline.
Can there be a court challenge challenge over the Chagos Island decision. It hasn't gone through Parliament yet. The Lords, there are lots of disappointment. We spoke to Andrew Rossendale, was Tory, now Reform MP. He's disappointed that the Tories in the Lords didn't push hard enough to basically talk that bill out. Because again, you don't want unelected peers deciding what MPs do, but there's no manifesto commitment to this. Yeah. Basically, all of the controversial things that the Labour Party has tried to do, weren't in the manifesto. They're plucked out of thin air. And therefore there's no requirement on the Lords to sort of let it through. Can there be a challenge on that? Can there also? I mean, as one of the government ministers has been saying in the last few moments that the Chinese embassy say will go through as well, but unless there's a court challenge, could there be? And there's talk of a court challenge by local people for a start.
On the Chinese embassy, there can be a number of court challenges and judicial reviews and everything else. So it's not something that's going to happen quickly. Can
we delay that until, say, Reform or the Tories are back in power?
Yes, almost certainly. And again, I hope there can be court challenges and certainly more challenges in Parliament over the Chagos bill, because there's only about 12 weeks more of parliamentary time for debates to go through, and there's an awful lot of stuff that Keir Starmer's done his U-turns on or hasn't presented into Parliament that he has to try and get through, and with any luck we could get out of parliamentary time to do this, and that would be a good way out for Keir Starmer without him being accused of a U-turn, because it's parliamentary procedure.
God forbid, because that would be damaging for him.
And an even better way out for us, because we wouldn't lose something that's vital.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Greenland. Donald Trump has made it very clear he wants Greenland. Starmer yesterday basically urged the EU not to hit back at Donald Trump over Greenland. Stay calm, everybody. The EU have been talking about this sort of trade bazooka. Basically hitting some of those tech companies that he loves so much. We're all in the front row at his exactly a year ago when he took office at his inauguration. Keir Starmer is slightly out of step with the EU. He's also out of step with all the world leaders who are turning up to Davos, which
and everyone in this country.
Trump, exactly. But it's fascinating. Only a few years ago, do you prefer Westminster or Davos? In a quick-fire question in an interview, he said, "Oh, Davos," and he said it very. I've never seen him more passionate about anything. His wife would love him to be as passionate about her as he is about Davos. But again, this is the thing. He's always gallivanting around the world. There's a load of pushback on that one year here, dealing with our problems here. So he decides not to go to Davos. The 1 year that everyone's going to be there.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
Donald Trump has published a couple of pictures, and it's basically very busy. He was a bit bored on that flight. Someone has got to get this man a Netflix account and just give him a nice long series with a load of episodes. Like those ones are like 8 series, 20 episodes ago, to keep him busy on long flights. Because not only did he post a message from President Macron, a private message, my friend, it begins, talking about having dinner in Paris, but basically saying, I do not understand what you're doing on Greenland. Let's try to build great things. Talking of a G7 meeting in Paris on Thursday, hastily convened. May well happen, who knows? But he also put out 2 pictures. One of them is a photograph. It's again AI, and it's got Donald Trump with a big US flag behind him, Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, and the J.D. Vance, the Vice President, putting it into Greenland. Greenland, US territory established 2026, it says. Another one is Donald Trump sitting in the Oval Office at the White House with all those NATO leaders who came to talk to him about Ukraine. And next to him is a big map of the northern North America, showing not just the US with an American flag, but the whole of Canada and Iceland as well. I mean, he is going hard. He's saying he's 100% committed to these tariffs. What do you think is going to be the end of this?
Well, I hope the end of this is going to be Europe, and I'll include Canada as part of Europe. So the
part of NATO.
The non-US nations of NATO coming together and stepping up an awful lot more in the wider defence priorities, and making sure that the United States is not needed for the defence of the North Atlantic area.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, we can't just go buy a whole load of military equipment, off the shelf. We can't pop to Tesco and get it.
But we can make it a lot, and actually the Poles are popping to Tesco and get it. Well, South Korea and are buying it from there, because there's a lot there they are getting off the shelf. So there's an awful lot more that we can do on that to convince the United States. If Donald Trump goes through an economic war, then Macron wants to carry out, go for this bazooka approach. The United Kingdom owns the second greatest amount of US debt, with $888 billion worth. We're second behind Japan. Japan owns the biggest amount of US debt. So if that started to get sold off,
we're not going to start an economic war with America.
We're not.
We're just not.
We're not. It would be the worst thing that we could ever do, because it would see a complete change in world order, and Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin would be the two people that would be laughing all the way to global power.
Every single story today, every single story, whether it's again, one of the biggest fears from the EU is we can't go too hard on this Greenland issue because we've got this worry about Ukraine, and if America pulls out and goes, you know what, not having anything to do with it, we're not selling you weapons anymore, which would be a silly thing to do, actually, because they're American companies making a lot of money, a lot of jobs resting on those arms sales to EU to hand over to Ukraine, paid for by
America's making a lot of money
Europe.
out of Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly. But again, Donald Trump doesn't necessarily always do things. I'm not sure he understands a lot of the economics on these things. Does this whole thing just come down to the fact that he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize? He's got the Venezuelan opposition leader's Peace Prize, but he hasn't got the one that he thinks he wanted. We've seen a leak of a letter to the Norwegian Prime Minister basically blaming the government for not giving him the Peace Prize. I'm of the view that he should have got the Nobel Peace Prize, although what had happened in Gaza hadn't happened by the time these polls, the nominations were closed. But Obama got nominated in the first 6 weeks of his presidency, and he'd done sod all.
Yeah, but Obama shouldn't have got it.
We know that. Even Obama admitted that.
But therefore, you don't then say because Obama got it, Trump should get it. Trump promised.
Except he did bring about peace in Gaza.
Well, no, he hasn't brought about peace in Gaza. He's brought about a cessation of the fighting that's going on at the minute. But at the minute, we still have Hamas as a terror organisation that's armed. They are still terrorising their own people. There's still no settlement between. And they haven't completed all the conditions of the first phase. There's still a body to be returned, and they haven't returned that yet to the Israelis.
We're in a better place than we were before that.
We're in a slightly better place.
We're in a much better. The Israelis are in a much better place.
It could fall apart tomorrow without any problems whatsoever, and therefore there isn't.
That's because the West doesn't properly back Israel in fighting these terrorist organisations.
and the same with Iran and everything that's going on there. And the Middle East is a tinderbox that could blow up even more than just what was going on in Gaza and southern Lebanon.
But what did Donald Trump saying in this message? He's in his own interviews. There have been so many messages, so many interviews, so many comments on his plane on Air Force One on the way over to Davos. He's speaking tomorrow there. He said he's 100% committed to these tariffs on the UK and 7 other NATO allies. But he says also he no longer feels an obligation to think purely of peace. He's always said he's the peace president. These are, Ukraine and things like that. These are Biden's wars. They're not my wars. They're not my problem. Now he's saying he no longer feels an obligation to think purely of peace. Sorry. That is terrifying.
But he's now carried out a military operation to arrest, albeit I think it was justified.
I think it was justified. An undemocratic leader.
Venezuela, but he did go into another country and take the
I don't have a problem with regime change in Iran or North Korea or undemocratic, totalitarian, authoritarian leaders who are narco criminals who've been indicted by the American courts. I've got no issue with that at all. It's not the same as Greenland, which is a democratic state and an ally.
But you're thinking of it from your perspective. You're not thinking of it from Donald Trump's perspective. So Donald Trump thinks it's all the same.
But he's thinking of it, let's face it, as from a Doddler's perspective, because we all know perfectly well he can protect Greenland and those routes, I get that American strategic interests stretch to Greenland. He has the right since 1941 to have as many military bases and troops there as he wants.
The 1951 agreement.
There was 41 he was allowed to build bases during the war.
Yes, but there was a specific 1951 agreement that brought together, looking at the Cold War and the threat from Russia, the US's ability to put whatever military capability it needed on Greenland, around Greenland. So there isn't a security issue there. Donald Trump could put the whole of the US military into Greenland tomorrow, and the agreement is already in place with the Danish government and the people of Greenland to do that.
Now, I think a lot of people would go, why are you talking about international affairs? Why don't we talk about like the economy's in decline? There are fewer job vacancies, fewer people in work. We've got. I mean, I just talked to someone only this morning talking about unable to get a doctor's appointment. Someone I know needs an operation, being told it's 9 months before you're even allowed to get on the list. I mean, they fiddle these lists. People are. We talk about crime. There's so many other things going on in this country, and yet so much focus, not just by the media, by the government, by others, is on international affairs. But they all tie in, don't they?
They do all tie in, but the other thing is what they do is the international affairs being handled so badly take political time away from our ministers. They take the bandwidth away, where they're then not using that to focus on what's going on in this country, and therefore it gets worse in this country. Is that Keir
Starmer's fault? I mean, I think, as I've just said, I think Keir Starmer is a threat to this country's security. I think he hasn't got a clue. But there is an element where all these countries in Europe, so everyone around the world is currently dealing with the complete and utter impetuous, impossible to predict actions of Donald Trump. I mean, I don't believe for a moment Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, is going, go for it, mate. He's absolutely horrified as well, is my guess.
And again, this is where Starmer's naively not going to Davos whenever in the World Economic Forum that's there. The latest economic figures or predictions that are coming out of the UK is that we are not going to grow by even the very small percentage that the government had said they were going to grow over 2026.
Exactly.
He needs to be there and start moving and shaking and getting us into a position to remain the sixth largest economy
the
in
US
the world.
tariffs ain't gonna work, are they?
No.
Wow, so much to talk about. 11:28 is the time. I want to hear from you. You can talk to us about the Chagos Islands, the great stupidity, Donald Trump and Greenland, the Chinese embassy just being approved in the last 20 minutes or so, right close to the Tower of London and to the city, these crucial cables. The economy, you want to talk about it, you can give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. We'll take your calls up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:30 is the time. So much to talk about that breaking news. As always, running a little bit too late, but we are going to be talking actually to a former advisor to both Clinton and Bush administrations about what he makes of all of these big stories. And we're also going to be talking to an award-winning teacher about that consultation on a social media ban for under 16s, Australia style. First up, then, let's get to your calls. 0344 499 1000. Elliot is in Bushy, wants to give us a very quick response to what we've just heard, that the Chinese embassy, mega embassy in the centre of London, is getting basically government approval. Elliot, what do you make of that decision?
Well, I am quaking, Julia. I cannot believe it. If I had my way, Julia, I would take this awful man and I would put him and all his rotten mob on trial. For what? For betraying this country and being traitors to our community. He must be mad. He must be mad.
Why do you think he's doing it? I mean, do you think he's secretly, a Chinese or a Russian agent? Or I mean, what's the explanation?
Okay, I'll tell you why. Because I think he's not right in the head. My father used to certify people as a medical practitioner who are less crazy. He has no idea. The Chinese, the Iranians, these awful autocracies look at the long term.
Yeah.
He's purely looking at tomorrow.
Yeah, they don't even look like 5, 10, 20 years. They play generations nations. And I always think our politicians just entirely live on a 24-hour news cycle, and that's why we can't compete with them.
I agree with you. And if I may add just one more thing, which is terribly important. Not only has he betrayed this country, and I would put him in court for being a betrayer. You know, we worry, you know, who will be the next leader? It will be just the same, if not worse. He's betrayed this country. He's betrayed the British community. And now I'm going to put my head on the block and I'm going to say it. He's betrayed the Jewish community in this country.
I agree with you.
His own wife, I believe, is Jewish. She has relatives in Israel. What a disgrace to his own family. It's just, I am so fuming. And everyone I speak to, whatever their ethnicity, whatever their career background, wherever they come from, they all say the same thing. The man is totally deranged, as are all his front bench and all this nonsense.
Elliot, not a happy man. I think a lot of people are going, I'm not going to diagnose him with a mental health problem. I think a lot of the policies are insane. I'll agree with you on that. But yeah, I think he has. I think he's betrayed our country. I definitely think he's betrayed British Jews. Absolutely. And betraying British Jews, he betrays the whole of the British people, because I'm sorry, the British people, you know, I don't even like the word tolerant, because that means you're putting up with. But the British people are welcoming and on the side of people who are being betrayed like that. Elliot, thank you for that. Stephen's on the line. Stephen is in Lincolnshire. Stephen, you want to talk about, so much to talk about today, but the Chagos Islands.
The Chagos Islands, yeah. What a disgrace to give those away and pay the benefit of billions out, which could be better spent on the UK.
Yeah, again, we haven't got the money for this, we haven't got the money for that, but but we have got the money to pay Mauritius to take something away from us that we already own.
Yes, but if Trump tariffed the UK over that potential, then of course Starmer would back down, would be billions in credit for us to use on the UK.
There is. Do you think that Donald Trump finally waking up to this? Because I'm sorry, the White House, the State Department have signed off on this before. Do you think him waking up on this, and maybe if they, the Americans basically get angry about the Chinese embassy, that actually this could put the kibosh on both plans?
I think there's good potential for him to tariff Starmer on the disposal of the Chagos. It will be a win-win for the US and the UK, because the potential for the incurred and future costs of losing the base and the Chagos, and the potential for billions in credit back to the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, we think we leased the Hong Kong, didn't we, for 100 years, and giving that back to China. How'd that work out for everybody as we will be giving the Chagos Islands back? Stephen, thank you very much. I'm going to have to go straight to a break. But before we do, time now to find out how you could be in with a chance of winning a trip of a lifetime to San Francisco. Talk is giving away flights, a 3-night stay at a 4-star Intercontinental Hotel, and £2,500 in spending money, plus tickets to the Super Bowl to top it all off. So listen to find out how you can enter.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 22nd January 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at TalkSport.com. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
You do not want to miss out on that trip of a lifetime. Very good luck to you. We'll take a quick break. Up next, going to be talking to a former advisor in the White House about what the hell is going on. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. What a rip-roaring show. If you missed anything of it, do go to my YouTube page, Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hear what we've been having to say about Chagos Islands, Greenland, you name it, Tammy Badenoch, reform. I mean, it's only 11:37. I'm exhausted. And here's the thing. It's only the 20th of January, and we've already got more news than we needed for the whole year. Oh, yeah, it's also only 1 year in to Donald Trump's second term in office, inaugurated just 1 year ago today. Oh, it's going to be a bumpy ride. Buckle up, everybody. Let's talk to one man who knows all about it. Steve Gill is a former advisor to both Bush Senior and the Clinton administrations. A good morning to you, Steve.
Good morning, Julia. Good to be with you.
Steve, where do I start? Now, you and I have come to blows a few times lately. I think you're rather too much of a Trump supporter, whatever he does, whatever he says. I'm going to start with, if you've just heard the breaking news in the last half an hour about the British government overriding a local council, local planning concerns, a Chinese mega embassy in the heart of London, next to vital communication cables into the city, next to the Tower of London, a major site here in London. We understand the Americans aren't too happy about this, but I mean, what do you make of this decision?
Again, I think like your callers are pointing out, I think people in England are already feeling betrayed by the influx of illegal aliens who've changed the culture, changed the economy, and are changing the dynamics of England. Now
I don't know what that's got to do with the Chinese embassy.
Well, again, if you're losing the culture in your country to others, why not go ahead and let the Chinese have their piece of the pie as well? I think people are upset, and I think rightly so. And I think Starmer is holding off the council elections around England because he sees the discredit that he has among voters, and he keeps pushing off votes because he knows how they will go.
Oh, if he thought he was going to win those votes and he wasn't going to come third or fourth, he would absolutely be holding those. Let's also talk about the Chagos Islands, because in a number of posts that Donald Trump has posted on his on Air Force One flight to Davos, he accused Keir Starmer of giving away, in his words, the Chagos Islands for no reason whatsoever in an act of what he called great stupidity. This is what I don't understand, is as he only just found out about this, because the White House and the State Department have basically been asked about this repeatedly, they've signed off on it already.
Well, and again, as your callers have pointed out, it's not giving it away. You're paying them to take it, which is even more insane. And
I'd love to be a used car salesman with Keir Starmer walking into the lot. Ka-ching.
And I would warn Starmer that, while President Trump is getting the, federal credit card warmed up to buy Greenland, maybe see if he can kick in some to buy Alberta, Canada, he's going to look around and say, hey, by the way, what would it take to buy the Chagos Islands? What are they selling this thing for? Well, maybe we'll throw in some money and we'll take that on. Change it to Mauricio Laga or something like that.
Diego Trumpia. I mean, but it does seem bizarre that, and interestingly, Nigel Farage, a Trump ally, our Reform UK leader here, he said, thank goodness Trump has vetoed the surrender of the Chagos Islands. I don't know if that is a veto, but obviously they're leasing those Diego Garcia, that military base. But he's also said the Americans have woken up to the fact they were lied to. They were told the UK had no choice but to surrender the Chagos Islands. This was simply not true. And now they are angry with us. But I mean, there was never any requirement on the British government to give these islands to Mauritius. They certainly have never owned the islands. This ICJ, the International Court of Justice, had no legal demand on us, and we had no reason to do it. So would an American veto stop it happening, do you think?
President Trump is playing, like that game Risk all over the world of putting buttons here and there to try and impose his will. So I think that he could certainly have an impact on whether or not it moves forward. My concern, Julia, is that President Trump, and again, I think these are international issues that deserve attention. As you said, why is he just now waking up to the Chagos Islands deal? But I think he needs to recognize that his involvement in international affairs in other countries and what appears to be a desire for the Nobel Peace Prize may cause him political problems at home, where people are more concerned about their piece of the pie economically, domestically at home. And I think, again, He did not run to be, the governor of the world, the president of the world. I think he needs to focus on what's going on at home.
And he's got the midterm elections in November where he could lose Congress, the majority in Congress. But crucially, I mean, again, like every American president, no American president has ever been elected saying, I'm going to go and be the policeman of the world. Every American president has been elected to be isolationist, and none of them turn out to be. In fact, the one that really absolutely shouldn't be was Obama, and he didn't do enough. Let's also talk about some other posts. Let's talk about Greenland, because that has been dominating the news. Two pictures, AI-generated pictures that Donald Trump's put out. The first is him planting a US flag in Greenland territory. He's got Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance beside him. No doubt they're wearing those new shoes that he bought them, which don't fit them. He's got a sign saying Greenland, US territory established 2026. Also, a picture actually taken from when he was meeting with NATO leaders, Ursula von der Leyen for the EU, the Keir Starmer, Macron, you name it, in the White House in the Oval Office. And behind him, he's got a board with a picture of North America, and he's got an American flag on America and on Canada and on Iceland. I mean, look, this is trolling. He may be thinking this is just fun, but he is making a threat against a democratic nation state, saying he will seize a country that says they do not want to be sold, they do not want to become American, that belongs to a NATO ally in Denmark. He's basically said, he is determined to have Greenland. How determined is he? How far is he willing to go?
I think the hysteria among some in the EU and NATO that he's getting ready to militarily invade Greenland
He said he would do that.
Well, he has said that he would use the military to protect Greenland from China and from Russia. That's different than saying we're going to go in and impose our will militarily. But keep in mind that when you have the Chinese and the Russians that are expanding their Belt and Road initiatives around the world in Africa and other places, it is not a stretch at all to see their interest in both the minerals, the strategic location of Greenland as well.
No,
so
but America already has the right to as many military bases and as many troops as it wants there for decades. They've got the right to do it. They've actually taken the number of bases down and the number of military personnel down. That was the choice. He can build that up at any time, and he would have the agreement of the Greenlanders. Why does he need to make threats about taking the country over?
And there are already about, I think, 140 U.S. personnel. So the one guy that Keir Starmer was going to send to Greenland to stop a U.S. invasion was ridiculous as well.
That's it. A lot of Europeans think this has all been a misinterpretation on Donald Trump's part, which is that the Europeans sent a load of staff, a load of military personnel over. Again, we sent our one bloke with his husky. But the Europeans sent that because Donald Trump said, hey, you Europeans, you're not protecting this territory. So they went, oh, OK, we'll send some people over to show you we are serious. And then he interpreted it as basically saying, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough, America. This is about a lack of communication, isn't it?
But some of those in the European leadership were saying, look, we will fight America with their own weapons, which is kind of interesting. You're going to have to buy the weapons from us to fight us with our weapons, which, again, the craziness of what some of these leaders have said. And again, as soon as Trump talked tariffs, the Germans took their 14 guys back home. So it is miscommunication. It is bad politics. And you look at what the Meloni, Prime Minister of Italy, is saying, that, look, we're not going to go along with this. I think what is really at play here that should concern the EU and Britain and others, the EU is getting more and more fractured in terms of we're going to go our own way and negotiate with Trump. We've got our own economic problems at home. We don't have the money to spend on these kind of foreign dalliances. And as you point out, the EU and Denmark are saying, look, the Greenlanders don't want to decide to go with the U.S., then let them vote. Let them vote, which is allowed.
Well, absolutely, they could vote. Hey, my view is if Donald Trump hadn't made threats and he'd said, hey, look, we'd like to come and do this, we'll pay you all $1 million, they'd have $57,000, it'd be cheap at half the price, they'd probably have agreed to it. But you're talking about hysteria and overreaction from the Europeans. It's Donald Trump who's threatening massive tariffs, 10% and then 25% by June, on closest NATO allies, because they're saying you can't commit this act of hostility on a member of NATO. The only winner from this, biggest winner from this, is two of them really, is Russia and China. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin are laughing their heads off this morning.
Well, as Prime Minister Meloni has pointed out, it is the EU that is overreacting when Trump says, I want to negotiate. Because he was talking about negotiating, and as she's pointing out,
so you put a gun to someone's head and say you want to negotiate, and people say, like, we're going to make you take the gun away. That's all. You put a bow and arrow to his head, which is what the equivalent of our forces are compared to his gun. That's not overreaction.
Nobody seriously believes that Trump has ever intended, and he has even said, I don't mean military invasion to take Greenland. So they're the ones that are overreacting.
He was repeatedly said he would. Isn't this all down to him being, big man baby, and is upset he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, and in that leaked letter with the Norwegian Prime Minister, he blames the Norwegian government, and in fact it's got nothing to do with them. It's the Nobel Committee. But basically, if he'd been given his Nobel Peace Prize, which by the way I think he deserved, then all of this would have not happened.
I don't think that's the case. I think he sees Greenland as strategic. Again, I think he looks, whether it's now late to the game, seeing that the Mauritius Islands, that Chagos, that China and Russia, you and I have disagreed about Ukraine. Thank God they don't speak, the Inuits in Greenland don't speak Chinese or Russia, or they'd have an argument that they should take over China, should take over Greenland. President Trump is looking at the globe of you have to block the strategic, military, and economic.
I've got no issue with him taking on China and Russia in the North Atlantic. Got no issue. Yes, please. I'd like him to take on Russia rather more, including in Ukraine. What do you make of the decision to publish that message from President Macron to President Trump? I mean, I don't think it's a good idea for him to publish private messages, calling him my friend, suggesting they have dinner, they have a G7 meeting. What do you think the likelihood is Donald Trump will agree after Davos that he's already in Europe, heading to Paris, having a G7 meeting to try and thrash some of this out in person?
Trump likes to meet personally with world leaders, and the smart ones realize that a good personal relationship with Trump is the best way to move forward. Okay. I think they'll end up having a meeting. Trump is always willing to meet with people who have an adverse opinion to his, so I think eventually they'll meet. But keep in mind, Trump has no respect for Starmer, Macron, or Merz. Their poll numbers, their economic situation in their home countries are dire.
Yeah, but have you seen Donald Trump's poll numbers?
Yeah, his poll numbers are doing great in the U.S. and the economy continues to improve.
They are not doing great.
The economy is improving. Don't believe the New York Times.
The economy is. I'm just looking at the poll. The polling doesn't have a bias on that. The polling is showing.
Look at what the economy has done in 1 year, Julia. From where we were with Biden, inflation, the cost of energy and gasoline, the cost of everything has dramatically plummeted, and the impact.
Well, he wants to put tariffs up, and the tariffs will put the cost of lots of goods up. Steve, we'll have to leave it there. Time's against us. I think we've actually managed to, not come to blows this time. That's a good start. Former advisor to both Bush Senior and the Clinton administrations. Thank you. Quick response from Philip Ingram to all of that.
Yeah, I think we're getting into the wordsmithing, and he was trying to argue that the wordsmithing out of Donald Trump isn't as strong as people are interpreting it as.
He said he was going to military take Greenland if necessary.
He did, but I think we're now getting in the right level of discussion, and the sensationalism of a lot of the headlines that are coming out are pushing everyone thinking in a way that there's no logic to Donald Trump doing it from us.
Absolutely not.
That level of strength.
Well, it's coming up to 11:50. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to talk about something back at home. Will there be a social media ban for under 16s? The government has decided they want to not wait for, as they said they would do, another U-turn, for the Australian ban on under 16s seeing social media to see how that plays out, how it works, if at all. They've said they're now going to open a consultation on this issue, mainly because due to backbench demand. Does the Prime Minister have any ideas of his own? The answer is definitely no to that. We're going to be talking to award-winning teacher Stephen James about that up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Not much common sense in the world right now, but is there enough common sense online? Well, enough from parents as well, who really struggle to keep their kids away from, well, not just social media, doom scrolling and infinity scrolling, but also just not doing other things that they should be doing when they're on social media. But the government has opened a consultation on whether or not there should be a ban on under-16s accessing social media. This has come after Australia instigated a ban just a month or two ago. Let's talk to Stephen James about this, an award-winning teacher. Good morning to you, Stephen.
Hello, good morning, Julia.
Thanks for joining us. I mean, the government had said they were going to wait and see how this Australia ban had played out, whether or not it even worked, you know, with lots of young people already, you know, let's face it, they're more tech savvy than government ministers and their own parents. They're able to get round these bans. We've had Ian Russell, the father of Molly Russell, who sadly took her life, I mean, tragically, after seeing, well, the algorithms sent her to more and more sites about self-harm and suicide. And he said, look, I don't want a ban on social media for under-16s because I think that will lead them to basically into much darker places on the dark web where we can't see what they're seeing or look at it. What do you make of this?
Look, I think you're absolutely right to highlight the importance of the parents' voice in this, because ultimately they're immediately responsible for their children. They're the ones who buy the mobile phones, who pay for the contracts, who are there most of the time with their children to be able to have these discussions. Schools absolutely have a role, but as we've spoken about before, is there a place for mobile phones and access to kind of social media in school? Absolutely not. So in terms of banning in schools, yes, but an outright ban for all children, I don't think is the right thing to do.
But we've already got, I mean, the vast majority of schools now do actually ban the use of mobile phones at all in school. And any school, if your school doesn't, I've said again to parents, get your kid out of that school because the parent teacher hasn't got a clue what they're doing. Kids shouldn't have their phones in school. Put them in a locker, end off, don't touch it. Massive punishment if they do. I don't understand why people find that difficult. But the main problem is what a lot of kids are seeing at home. I mean, these kids, turning up at school absolutely exhausted because they've been sitting there scrolling till 3 a.m, worrying about likes on Instagram, girls putting far too sexualised pictures on, some really nasty stuff that people are seeing. Is taking them off social media the answer? Because, let's face it, a lot of parents haven't got a clue what their kids are doing on their phones and wouldn't know how to stop them even if they did.
Well, absolutely. We need to start with teaching judgment and actually respecting children for, they are young adults. They are coming into this world.
No, they're not. They're kids.
Some of them are, as they're approaching 16, they are starting to mature and they are starting to find out about the world. See, what you're creating is a cliff edge at 16 if you ban it.
But we do that with alcohol and cigarettes and sex. I mean, we have lots. There has to be a cliff edge. At one point you can't do something. At one point you legally can. We know that we blur the lines. And most people I know were, drinking or smoking or doing God knows what before their legal age they were allowed. But that doesn't mean we get rid of those legal age limits.
And absolutely, and I agree with you. And I would be telling you a lie if I didn't have a beer before the age of 18. And I'm sure you might be as well. So
quite a lot before then.
What I'm more advocating is, teaching children to be responsible, respectful. Wisdom does not come as soon as you turn 16. So you have to, as parents, as schools, as society, to help bring up your children, that kind of collective parenting.
Yeah, we do. But not every parent does their job. A lot of schools aren't doing their job. And there's a lot of really horrific stuff online. There's horrific stuff that kids are seeing. Forget social media, the stuff they're wasting their time, sitting there on YouTube looking at, silly stunts, copying those stunts, or they're seeing horrific pornography and the like. I mean, I don't know what the answer is. And I worry about the civil liberty implications for adults, like who's a child and who's an adult and how do you prove that and people's identity. There's loads of issues there. But we cannot just sit there and go, it's absolutely fine to kids to spend their entire sodding lives looking at these mad worlds that are on social media. Is it down? What about the tech companies? What about not having a ban, but tech companies being much stricter? Like, a kid can go into a pub with their parent, but they're not allowed to order alcohol. So they can be on social media, but they're not allowed to do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, and I think that is absolutely right. And you're helping bring up your children then digitally, which is the right thing to do. And in terms of Apple, have a really great thing where our family is kind of pulled together into one kind of login, and I can make sure that screen time is turned off at 6 o'clock in the evening, and they can't go on any of these apps. I can approve apps. I can say you can only spend 10 minutes on this app.
That's great.
These things are great, but it's down to the parent to educate themselves.
I don't think most parents know that thing's even an option.
And at the same time, why are we buying children mobile phones at that age? It's it's bonkers in my view.
Because well, I mean, I didn't get my daughter. She had a brick one, in year 6 because she was walking to school on her own, and again, fell into that madness of I need to know if she's alive. She's going to die on the way to school. Not nonsense stuff. My parents were letting me walk to school at the age of 6. Couldn't care less. Not an issue. It was the norm in the 70s. But I do think a lot of parents think they haven't got a clue what's going on their kids' phones. So they also they buy their kids phones because if their kid is the only kid without a phone, their kid's the only kid not on social media, their kid is left out.
But just because lots of parents don't have a clue, does that give us the right to ban everything for all children?
Well, we do that with alcohol. We do that with cigarettes.
But I also get very worried about the state intervening and bringing up my children and telling me, I don't want Keir Starmer, parenting from Downing Street, my daughter.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Savin, I know we're going to talk to you about this again. We'll see this story keeps on moving. Award-winning teacher Stephen James, thank you for that. What did you say to that, Philip? I don't want Keir Starmer parenting my kid.
Well, I think the underlying bit that comes out here is that parents are not very good at parenting.
A lot of them. But even good parents are really struggling with tech and social media. Look, genuinely, my mum will call and say, I can't do this on my phone. And I'll say, call my daughter. She'll know what to do.
But the trouble
she'll sort it.
But the trouble is, because tech is advancing so fast, if parents don't try and keep up with what's going on, they don't understand the real threats that are out there, and they don't understand the pressures that are on kids.
Most parents have no idea what the kids do. I've talked to parents in my daughter's school. Literally, you have no idea what porn is like these days.
And this is where I do support an age limit coming in for access to social media, in the same way that there should be an age limit
there is one at 13 now.
To alcohol and vapes and all the rest of it. Does the age limit stop people vaping earlier than that? No, you just walk past a local school and you see all the kids out there vaping away.
I think it will stop a lot.
But it'll stop a lot, but it'll also give parents that hook to go, I need to have a look at this and just check and see.
Yeah.
That's a start.
I'm still in two minds on this because I think the risks of it being, well, if you prove you're young, to prove you're an adult, not 16-year-old or 15-year-old, they're going to have more interference in adults' lives. So I think it's a very difficult
easier
balance.
for the groomers then to get and manipulate.
Very difficult balance. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Lots of international affairs still to talk about as well. Coming up, we're going to be talking to Mason Gifford, a former British volunteer fighter in both Syria and Ukraine. He's put his money where his mouth is. And we're going to find out what he makes of all these international affairs. So much more coming up, including Brand Beckham has just exploded. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, good afternoon to you. 2 minutes past midday. We're only halfway through the day. We've already had enough news, not just for the day, but for the entire year, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say. We've got lots more to talk about in the next hour before Ian Collins takes over at 1. And whether you are listening on DAB Plus Radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you so much for being with us. Always appreciate you taking the time to join us. If you did miss anything from the show, wow, we've had a rip-roaring first 2 hours. Go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show, hit subscribe, and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking more about the news in the last hour. The UK government has approved the Chinese mega embassy right next to the Tower of London, and also right next to, within a metre, some of the most vital communication cables to London City, basically vital to our economy. Absolutely extraordinary decision that has already been condemned by many more. Basically anyone who's got their head screwed on, right? We're also going to be discussing Donald Trump accusing Keir Starmer of giving away the Chagos Islands for no reason whatsoever, he says, in an act of great stupidity. Yep, the White House has finally woken up to the madness of that deal. And also, we're going to be talking a bit more about Greenland and all the threats there, EU tariffs, but also, crucially, why Shamima Begum, remember her, the ISIS bride, didn't really have a problem with finding, you know, heads in bins under the ISIS regime in Syria. She was all for it after leaving Britain at the age of 15. Well, she could now be freed from her detention camp in Syria due to the chaos there within days. Wonder where she'll try to go afterwards. Will it be Britain? Also, Kemi Badenoch warned Tory MPs in a letter last night that she won't tolerate any more psychodrama after recent defections to reform. I would say good luck to that, Kemi. And Nepo baby Brooklyn Beckham has been attacking his family, particularly his mother and father, on social media. So David Beckham has turned up in Davos, not answering questions from the media about the, well, let's face it, exploding facet that is the Beckham brand, because that is now whoosh, in an awful lot of little pieces on the ground. Right, so much more to talk about. I want to hear your thoughts on anything and everything you want to have your say on, whether it's the giving away the Chagos Islands, Donald Trump accusing Starmer of great stupidity, the giving away of the territory to China to build a big mega embassy. Just, I'm literally, I can see just across the river to where it would be from the studio right now, despite all the concerns that have been raised, certainly by, perhaps we say, former MI6 and MI5 leaders who perhaps are able to speak out rather more openly and freely and honestly than those who are currently in those jobs. Give us a call. Let us know your thoughts on 0344 499 1000. Text us on 87222. You can get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1, standard network rate message. Still with me in the studio, I'd like to say, is Philip Ingram, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer. It's never a bad day to have him in the studio with his breadth and depth of expertise on so many of these different issues. But I mean, I'm telling you, I'm not joking. I'm worn out with all the news we've got today. Woke up this morning, we had a great show plan. I think we've still had a great show. But Donald Trump and this whole raft of messages on Truth Social, and then his criticism of the Prime Minister on the Chagos Islands, and now we've got the decision on the Chinese embassy. Well, what should and Greenland, of course, what should be number one in Keir Starmer's in-trade today?
Number one in Keir Starmer's in-trade today should be recognising that the world is a much more dangerous place, and therefore start to properly invest in our defence, but insisting that the investment in our defence builds up our own defence industry, because that will build up our economy and give us
It's a magnificent way to build up the economy, isn't it?
A hugely magnificent way of doing it, but he's not doing it. He's bluffing. He's lying when he says he's giving more money into defence. In reality, he's cutting it for the next 3 years because he's front-loaded the Chagos deal and compensation for Afghans out of the defence budget.
And that is in the tens and tens and tens of millions millions of pounds.
It's in billions of pounds.
Billions in total.
It's in billions of pounds.
Again, it's all lies. I said earlier on the show, if you missed this, go to my social media and the Talk social media on X and but also it'll be on our YouTube page, Julia Hartley-Brewer show. If you want to find that, hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing from that. But basically saying, no, genuinely, I think the Prime Minister is a clear and present danger to our nation's security at this time, full stop. Well, let's talk to someone who's definitely been in clear and present danger. He's a former British volunteer fighter in Syria against Assad, and also in Ukraine against the Russians. He's put his money, he's put his muscle, he's put his life where everyone else just does the talk, including people like me. He's also the author of Fighting Evil, the ordinary man who went to war against ISIS. Mesa, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Good afternoon.
I mean, where do we start, mate? Right, look, let's talk first of all, just that news that's come in the last hour about the Chinese embassy, because you've been, you fought against the Russians, you fought against ISIS, and the forces ranged against Assad, of course, in Syria as well. Now, you've been fighting, I'd say, the good fight over the years. What is the point of people like you, and indeed, British military in terms basically taking on the fight against our enemies, when you've got, the Prime Minister and the government handing over British territory to the Chinese to build a mega embassy, which could be a direct threat to our security?
Well, it's deeply frustrating. I think this government, and actually, I must say previous ones too, have just found themselves strong-armed time and time again into terrible decisions for our country. I think the Chinese embassy is a good sort of example of that. Obviously, you can talk about the Chagos Islands. You can also talk about Donald Trump's treatment of us as well. But in regards to the embassy, I mean, it's actually quite a good thing that we can get all the Chinese diplomats into one space. I believe they operate in 5 at the moment. That would be good. But what is disastrous is that the Chinese government very much, as I said, strong-armed the government on this one. The embassy sits next to very vital cables from the City of London, which is the powerhouse of the British economy. And the Chinese spies have stolen so much from us over the last few years. So, I mean, it's just getting a little bit of common sense injected into government. That's what we'd like to see.
I mean, we should try that. I wonder if that would work. I mean, it's very interesting also to see Donald Trump in numerous Truth Social posts over his flight over on Air Force One to speak in Davos tomorrow. But he's criticised the Prime Minister on the Chagos Islands. I don't know why he's suddenly woken up to this issue, because the White House has signed off before. But how significant is what he calls the giving away of the Chagos Islands for no reason whatsoever? He calls it an act of great stupidity.
It is monumental stupidity. I mean, the islands were only sort of administered from Mauritius. They've got no claim to the islands whatsoever. It's more than 1,500 miles away, I think, from the islands. The islands were terra nullius when they were discovered. They've been part of Britain for hundreds of years. There's a very important base there. And the idea that we're just going to give it away is just insanity. Who's pushing China to give up Tibet? Which is a far more fundamental issue with millions of people inside.
And to stop making threats against Taiwan as well.
Exactly. Well, why is Britain the one that's being strong-armed into making terrible decisions by either foreign despots or foreign lawyers? It's just absolutely insane. There's so much more to talk about on this, but it's could go on for hours.
Oh no, exactly. I must go actually just back to Chinese embassy. Interestingly, just to get people up to date, that announcement was only in the last hour. MI5, according to a letter just been published to the Home Secretary and the Foreign Secretary, MI5 has warned that it is not realistic, in their words, not realistic to expect to be able wholly to eliminate each and every potential risk linked to China's new London embassy. This is signed by the Director General of MI5, Sir Ken McCullum, in a joint letter with GCHQ's director, and a letter to the Home Secretary and the Foreign Secretary. So they're not going to eliminate each and every potential risk. Well, of course, there are always going to be risks, but we're going to increase the risk of that at a time when we're giving away the Chagos Islands to a country has no right to them, no legal right to them, and we're going to pay them for the privilege, and they're under the thumb of the Chinese. I mean, Xi Jinping is having a very, very good day today, isn't he?
Well, we're being laughed at by the world's most dangerous people. The world is entering a very chaotic period with Russia on the warpath, China threatening Taiwan. The spread of democracy is not the norm around the world.
Now, can I stop you there? This is something that people do not understand in this world. about a third of the countries of the world, a third of the population of the world lives under a sort of functioning democracy, and the rest of them don't. So many in the West are so absolutely convinced, well, you know, if there's a vote in the UN or if this or that happens, you know, the rule of law and democracies, and that there are a few bad actors and everyone else is living this wonderful free life. Democracy is not the norm in human existence, never has been, I fear never will be.
And it's in decline. It's under attack. And if we want democracy to take root and to expand and to grow and to see Western civilization prosper into the next century, we have to fight for it. We can't just sit back and be strong-armed into terrible decisions, whether it's giving away territory or whether it's building super embassies. China sort of accused us of sort of bad faith acting and sort of said, oh, it's going to affect our future relationship.
Rubbish.
But they've redacted parts of the embassy. We don't even know what they're building under the ground.
I think we've got a good idea. But you talked about the chaos from Russia and China, obviously Russian invasion of Ukraine, the threats from China and what they've been doing, their long-term policy, building up their own security. I mean, again, the amount they're spending on defence, what is it, 8% of their huge GDP? You know, we're at 2.3%. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. But lots of chaos right now is coming about as a result of a democratically elected leader of one of our closest allies, and that is Donald Trump. His threats over Greenland, we've just had a former White House advisor, a big fan of Donald Trump, saying, look, oh, you know, he's never said he would invade militarily. I mean, yes, he has. He's made it very clear that's not off the table. We've got threats of tariffs to other NATO countries, including the UK, if we don't basically say, yes, you can have Greenland. What do you make of those threats, and what do you make of the chances of the likes of, you know, Macron's tried to have a G7 this Thursday after Davos. They're all going to try and talk to him. The Trump whisperers, you know, Mark Rutte of NATO are going to be trying to sort of get in his ear. What do you think the chances are of basically talking Donald Trump down?
Well, I think we're going to have to come up with a deal. I mean, we're between a rock and a hard place at the moment. The economy is not doing that well, and the idea of long-term tariffs could push us into recession. Yet, at the same time, this is a matter of principle and also our security and our relationship with Europe. So at the end of the day, hopefully a deal will be done. I have mooted with friends the idea of sort of sovereign bases, just like we have in Cyprus, the idea of actually ceding some of the bases to America permanently, and also including them into any future sort of exploitation of the resources of the island. But I mean, that's going to have to come in negotiation. I think Donald Trump at the moment is acting like a mini Caesar or a wannabe Caesar, and it's really straining the relationship, which is by far the most important one we have. So we have to get this right.
And there's some very big importance to somewhere that's very close to your heart, which is Ukraine, in terms of the Europeans getting it right, because there's not just a concern of tariffs, which would affect our economies, and by the way, make things more expensive for America. It's already facing a massive cost of living crisis, so not for Donald Trump. I mean, this doesn't make sense on any basis, what he's doing, but this ongoing sort of underlying threat that he will pull help for Ukraine. The Europeans have been spending far more than twice as much as America's ever on Ukraine, and currently, you know, he's willing to sell us arms, sell the Europeans arms, which they then give to Ukraine. Absolutely vital in keeping up that war effort. We've had some deals on, financing the Ukrainian government for the next few years. How concerned are you that a fallout between Europe and America will actually lead to a lack of help for Ukraine and Ukraine falling to the Russians?
Well, it's very worrying. I mean, Donald Trump has pulled almost entirely America's funding to Ukraine. It now sells weapons to Ukraine with European funds. Their intelligence is critical to the defense of Ukraine. It's something that is almost free for America to provide. It's insane that he would even want to remove it. So I think he's just trying to strong-arm Europe. The real challenge here is that Donald Trump, hopefully, really has actually woken us up to the stark reality of the world, that we have lived in complete isolation and ignorance for many, many years, in complete naivety, that we need to start standing up for ourselves. We need to start investing in the military, we need to start investing in the security services, and we need to start taking a very robust view on the world and start asserting our national interest in the same way that the United States does. Because if we don't, we will continue to decline, and how that will impact us is there'll be less money, we'll be less secure, and our country will slowly decline.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We know Denmark, he's quite right. He's saying Denmark and Europe can't defend Greenland against the threat from China or Russia, or indeed from America. We're not unable to defend so far, Ukraine on our own and fight back against Russia. And again, that mixed signal that was being given before the invasion of Russia, it tells you everything. Invasion by Russia, sorry. Let's turn to the Middle East just briefly as well, because of course you did also fight fight with against ISIS and in Syria. In Gaza, the Gaza peace plan, such as it's still in play, we've got this sort of board being set up to sort of take the country forward. I don't know how realistic any of this ever was. It was all in sort of the next stages of the plan for Gaza. But we know that Tony Blair has now been offered a place on that board, but also Donald Trump's offering one to Vladimir Putin. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it shows how unserious Donald Trump is in many ways. He's both incredibly serious, we have to take him seriously, yet also incredibly unserious himself. He views the world through the narrow prism of a property developer, as a billionaire New Yorker. He doesn't have any foreign affairs experience. He's made some catastrophic mistakes, both in his term now and also in his past one, not only in Ukraine by abandoning the Ukrainians, but also right now when he's abandoning the Kurds. His strong-arming of allies while completely kowtowing and backspouring and scraping and completely succumbing to the whims of foreign adversaries. He tried to muscle China into a bad deal, and they just turned off the tap, and he came straight back to the negotiating table.
Maybe the Europeans should learn from this.
We should start standing up for ourselves just a little bit more. But the trouble is, we're in a weak position only because we've had decades of terrible politicians making all the wrong decisions. Yep. And it's just about time that we injected a little bit of common sense. We start investing in ourselves and becoming much more assertive on the world stage.
This is sort of like, so, living in a home with no proper locks on the doors or locks on the windows, not being very casual about it. A burglar breaks in and just takes one thing. At that point, you should go, do you know what? We've had a little wake-up call. Maybe we should start having a bit more security. Let's talk about the security against some of our own, former citizens. Shamima Begum, a British schoolgirl, left the East End, went off to go and join ISIS as one of the ISIS brides. I don't think life has been too kind to her, even when she was an ISIS bride, but she, by all accounts, wasn't too kind to other women there who breached certain Islamic codes. She's shown no remorse until she was had the possibility of coming back to Britain, when she suddenly started to say, oh, it was all terrible, her life. But this is a woman who's still in a prison camp in the Middle East. There's a lot of talk that she may end up being freed because of chaos in Syria. Talk us through where she's being held, who's holding her, and how she could end up freed, and whether or not she is likely to try, although she's failed legally to get back here, to make her way back to Britain.
She's in the Al-Hol camp in northeastern Syria. At the moment, there is an ongoing campaign by the Damascus government to attack what was the SDF, or the SDF's largely collapsed now. It's really becoming about the Kurds again in northeastern Syria. And there's been fighting. Obviously, Raqqa has been retaken by the government, which, if I'm honest, is actually a good thing. It's good the Arab areas return to the central government. But you can't do this at the barrel of a gun. Yeah. Thing has to be done by consent. Build confidence in people. The forces are pushing through Shadadi now. Unfortunately, ISIS prisoners were released just yesterday. Some have been recaptured, but there are tens of thousands.
Are they deliberately being released, or in the chaos they're able to escape?
There's two sides to this story. There's the central government has been accused of releasing them. They've accused the SDF of releasing them. Others are saying they've escaped naturally. But the most important thing here is that they wouldn't have escaped if the central government hadn't been on the attack.
It's due to the chaos. But there's been this concern for many years that some of those prisoners, even more dangerous people than Shamima Begum, would be freed in this sort of civil war. If she does get freed, she has had her British passport taken away. She herself had reneged on her British citizenship. She doesn't have another. I think she's got some grandparents in one country, but she was a British citizen. Do you think she'll try and make it back to Britain?
Well, if you look at the past evidence of how the central government, the HTS and other groups have dealt with ISIS prisoners of British descent, I forget the name of one in particular case, they've just let them go. Yep. So there's one particular case where a British guy who was fighting in Raqqa, Islamic State fighter, he came in, they arrested him for like a month or two, they let him go, and he disappeared, we don't know where he is anymore. Great. Now, there are tens of thousands of ISIS prisoners. If they were to get out, they will just disappear. Does she still retain her passport? Could she still get on a flight from Turkey or Lebanon or wherever and get back to the UK? And what would we do if she just turned up?
Oh, we'd welcome her with open arms, apparently.
there's thousands of people coming across the channel. There's other ways to get to the UK. And if she were to just to turn up, then how would we deal with her? Would be a prolonged legal case.
Yeah.
But more importantly, as you say, there are far more dangerous people than Shamima Begum, even though MI5 deem her as a real incredible threat. They think she's a threat. But there are others who are complete fanatics, who know how to build bombs, who are deadly trained. And if they turned up on British streets, it would be an utter disaster. So we need to get this right as well.
It's another one of those happy mornings, happy afternoons, isn't it? Mesa Gifford, great to get your thoughts on all of these different stories. So appreciate former British volunteer fighter in Ukraine and in Syria. Philip Ingram, listening to all that, I know you disagree with some of the things about the Chinese embassy. I want to get you just on Shamima Begum. Just first of all, what is the risk of her coming back?
Oh, I think the risk is very high indeed. You know, she will get into the refugee routes. She will, and the asylum seeker route. She will be.
She made her way out. She can make her way back.
She'll be picked up by the organised crime gangs. Someone will pay a small fortune for her to come in through the channel.
But she'll either reveal her identity or not. Presumably fingerprinting or something. They'll identify. Once they do, we're not going to get rid. We're not going to. We can't send her anywhere. Where are we going to send her?
She won't do it until she gets into this country, and if she gets away with not revealing her identity, she'll wander around, do what she wants to do.
And she will be a danger. These people are massively radicalised.
100%. And I think one of the things I agree completely with what Mesa was saying there is what we're suffering from at the moment from our government is a lack of nationalism. We need to focus on ourselves first and foremost.
Yes,
and
that's the job of a government.
Look at everything through the lens of, is it in the national interest? And that's not happening.
No, absolutely not. I don't even know where to start with all these stories. Let's get to your calls in just a couple of moments. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. I say that, the board is full, but keep those calls coming in, and we'll get to some calls in just a couple of moments. 0344 499 1000. Your thoughts on all of the big stories of the day, very, very welcome. As I say, I'll talk about what I want to talk about, but you get to decide what you want to talk about. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:25 is the time. So much going on today, whether it's the Chinese embassy getting the go-ahead, extraordinary line from the boss of MI5 and GCHQ basically saying, look, they can't guard against all of the risks of that Chinese mega embassy in central London. Oh, so that's okay then. I mean, this is insane. We're also, of course, the Donald Trump quite rightly calling out the Prime Minister over the great stupidity of giving away the Chagos Islands, again, putting us at risk and costing us a load of money. I mean, we are just in mad territory. And as I said a little bit earlier on the show, I do believe that basically at this point, Keir Starmer is a clear and present danger to our country's security. Full stop. Let's talk to you. Get your thoughts on all the big stories. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Peter is in Dorset. And Peter, you want to talk about that news on the Chinese embassy. What do you want to say?
Good afternoon to you.
My love.
I'm afraid it isn't just stupidity with Starmer. It's stupidity coated with malignancy.
Oh.
The situation is that why on earth were the Chagos Islands sold?
Yep.
Why are we even having an embassy, which has been totally overruled with overruling the council?
Yep.
Why has that happened? Why is Starmer keep running to China? Why is the Foreign Secretary going to follow him?
Yeah.
Totally autocratic decisions made.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that even Labour voters who voted in the last election, I would say even them, there's only a handful of them who would even vote for Labour now, the way it is. And we are in an absolutely... there is a sinister, behind a curtain situation with Starmer and the Chinese. We're not being told about it. As far as I'm concerned, I reckon this is MI5able. But this is absolutely...
There's definitely something going on. I think there's a lot of talk about Lord Hermit, the Attorney General, and I mean, again, just in terms of why on earth he seems to think that these things are all upset. I mean, Keir Starmer clearly does his bidding. Look, just as I genuinely, everyone I've spoken to who knows what they're talking about thinks that Donald Trump is in some way basically compromised by the Russians, and I don't mean dodgy dealings in with prostitutes in Moscow hotels. Far more serious than that. And I'm sorry, and I don't. It's not Trump derangement syndrome. You sometimes simply cannot explain any action that takes place from Donald Trump any other way. But also Keir Starmer, some of his actions. I would say the same with George Osborne when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer as well. David Cameron. I think a lot of the time it's misplaced. Misunderstanding of how world affairs work. A lot of it's just incompetence. A lot of it is some completely sort of left-wing mad view of the world and how it works. And a lot of it, frankly, is about money. And I'm sorry. I just think I agree with you. I think there's just something very sinister about this.
Absolutely. I've actually been on your show probably a year or so ago already, saying not your show, on Talk, saying something very, very similar. You know, one only has to be reasonably intelligent and look between the lines. It doesn't take rocket science to see what's going on here. And on top of everything else, you know what? Europe are in danger from what Starmer's doing as well. He is putting everybody in danger. What are even the Europeans tolerating Starmer for? I have absolutely no idea. And what is also quite extraordinary, which I have never had in my lifetime, is how the government, the Prime Minister, can be slagged off in the way that they are all the time, every day. Somebody is slagging them off. I've never heard the amount of disrespect towards a government, in a Western government, in my entire life.
Absolutely. I really appreciate your call, Peter. Thank you very much indeed. Let's turn our attention to, it's only a matter of time, was it? Georgina in London. Good afternoon to you, Georgina. You want to have your say on this decision to approve the Chinese embassy, even though MI5 and the GCHQ are basically saying, well, we can't eliminate every risk related to this decision. What do you make of it all?
Well, this is more than a risk. I think that Keir Starmer and Harmer should be brought before the court for treason against our country. It's not often that I'm lost for words, Julia.
Wait a minute, the Tories sold the Chinese this land and they approved that sale and they knew it was for an embassy.
Yes, they did. And that, honestly, I'm sick to the stomach with the whole business. Like I said, it's not often I'm lost for words, but hearing that this government has given consent for a Chinese mega embassy to be allowed within the bosom of our capital city has made my blood run cold. Keir Starmer is the British equivalent of Nero. He's watching Britain and its people and its economy burn. And the most terrifying aspect, Julia, is that he thinks that in doing what he's doing, he's appeasing and palling it up with China. You can't pal it up with these people.
Exactly.
By doing this, all he's done is hand our country and its people over to China on a plate. He has invited the enemy within yet again, not content with the enemy of illegal migration, the enemy of Palestinian refugees after the recognition of a Palestinian state, and taking upon himself to give away sovereign territory and making us pay for the privilege. But he's now welcoming China, a recognised enemy of Britain, who can now infiltrate and sabotage our very infrastructure if they so desire. And he has done this when our country is at its weakest, weak in both defences and economically. Thanks to Starmer, we are the laughing stock of the Western world. We have the weakest and the most incompetent Prime Minister that we could ever have had. I'm convinced that he has an arrangement of some sort for Britain. But this goes beyond incompetence now, Julia. He has now put our country and our people in direct danger from one of our arch nemesis. And I'm looking upon this as an act of treason against our country, our people, and our crown.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, every word. I can certainly say Philip Ingram is sitting here absolutely saluting, cheering along. Georgina, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, it is an act of treason. There's no question at all about this. I mean, that's the most incompetent and useless Prime Minister. I mean, I'm going to raise you Emmanuel Macron. I don't know. They haven't even got have they got a Prime Minister this week? Who knows? Philip Ingram, just your response to these accusations of treachery and treason and malignancy.
100%. She got it spot on. You know, that was very eloquently put.
Always is. It's Georgina. Come on.
Starmer is not focused on the interests of this country, and we haven't been able to work out what interests he is focused on. Yep. And it's not going to be good when it comes out. It's not going to be good for him. But we need to stop him.
I think mostly these people, again, they're just fools. But then they're being someone's behind them saying, "Well, you should be doing this."
There's someone manipulating.
Yep. It doesn't make sense. It literally doesn't make sense otherwise. Yeah. Well, it's 12:33. We're going to take a very quick break, and then we're going to be talking to Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. He's a former Conservative government minister. Lots to ask him. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:34 is the time now. Live from College Green outside Westminster. Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, former Conservative government minister. A very, very good afternoon to you, Sir Jacob.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you for joining us. I must ask you, first of all, I mean, so much to talk about in terms of world affairs, but a lot of it actually does come back to Britain. The Chinese embassy in the East End of London basically said no, said the local authority, no, said the local people. The government has taken it on. They have now approved that mega embassy, despite the fact that MI5 and GCHQ directors have written to the Home Secretary and the Foreign Secretary saying it is, quote, not realistic to expect to be able wholly to eliminate each and every potential risk, they say, linked to that new London embassy, close to important cables right next to the city. What do you make of that decision?
Well, I think all embassies are inevitably a risk and are used for spying, and we probably use our embassies for spying too. So one shouldn't be too squeamish about the reality of diplomacy, but I think it is unconscionable to give permission to China for anything as long as Jimmy Lai is still in prison. Jimmy Lai is a British citizen who never had any Chinese citizenship, who is locked up in Hong Kong for exercising a right to free speech that China promised the people of Hong Kong would have for 50 years after we left in 1997. And I think it's really awful that the government's doing so little about Jimmy Lai whilst kowtowing to China in terms of planning permission.
It's interesting that Jimmy Lai is not a priority as a British citizen, but apparently El Fattah was a priority as a dual Egyptian-British citizen who had been very, very open, I mean, all over social media about his hatred of Britain, of Jews, of anyone in the West, and wanted to kill us and our military and our police. But the Foreign Office spent an awful lot of time trying to get El Fattah out of prison in Egypt and brought back here to Britain, but not so much with a British national in Hong Kong who's simply fighting for freedom.
You're quite right. So the Foreign Office kowtows to China and brings Britain haters here. It's really a very stupid approach to foreign policy, and we should do absolutely nothing for China until Jimmy Lai is free. We have a duty to him and the people of Hong Kong. Hong Kong was handed over to China in a deal that the Chinese have broken. and we should not be dealing with them in an ordinary way unless they follow the joint declaration and the agreement that they made.
Why do we? Because, you know, under previous Tory regimes, under, you know, David Cameron and George Osborne, they were quite happy to deal with China. I mean, literally, have a pint with Xi Jinping in the pub, get Huawei to run our 5G network, no questions at all. Because although I think the decision is an absolutely dire decision, I've got a funny feeling the Tories might have done the same if they were still in power. We've had a number of callers. They've talked about this being treachery, treason, motivated by stupidity and malignancy. Do you think any of that is true?
Well, I think it depends on the Tories, to answer your first point, that Tom Tugendhat and Ian Duncan-Smith have both been sanctioned by China, both of them influential within the Conservative Party. There was the Cameron desire to have a new relationship with China, but I think that's been seen through. It's also worth bearing in mind that China has changed under Xi Jinping. It's gone back to a more Maoist style of government and a more hostile style of government to the West. Following Deng Xiaoping as opening up, China was becoming a country that it did make sense to deal with. And over the last 15 years, it's become quite clear that that isn't working anymore. Would the Conservatives have done the same? I very much hope not. Have some of your callers made some brilliant and eloquent points? Yes, indeed, I heard one or two of them whilst I was standing here earlier.
Well, indeed, but I mean, you could say the same, a lot of people would say, over the Chagos Islands. And although, again, the talks were carrying on under the Conservatives for a long time, they were kind of kicked into the long grass. And pretty much the top priority, apparently, in his intro when Keir Starmer came into office, at the behest of his Attorney General, Lord Herman, who seems to have some bizarre sort of power over him, was to basically hand over the Chagos Islands to the Mauritians and pay them for the privilege of leasing back our own territory, including the Diego Garcia base. Donald Trump, it seems, has finally woken up, despite the White House previously agreeing to this madness, and says Keir Starmer, in a Truth Social post overnight, accused him of giving away the Chagos Islands, and he says his words, for no reason whatsoever, in what he called an act of great stupidity. Do you think that there is a possibility now of a US veto, and would that stop this from going ahead?
Well, I would hope so, because obviously the US military base at Diego Garcia is very important to the United States. Again, this ties in with China, because Mauritius is a sycophant to China, gets money from China, sucks up to the Chinese state, and you would be giving sovereign control over Chagos to a Chinese acolyte, and that cannot be in the interest of Western security. It's a pity that Donald Trump hasn't concentrated more on Chagos and a bit less on Greenland, because Chagos seems to me to be an immediate present risk by really eye-wateringly stupid policy. Not only are we giving something away that we own outright and getting it back on a less secure basis, but we're paying billions of pounds for the privilege, and there are conflicts of interest within the government. All sorts of Keir Starmer's legal friends seems to have been getting their snouts in the trough and getting fees for all of this. I'm very suspicious of what's been going on.
I hate to use that word suspicious. You mentioned Greenland there. Let's just touch briefly on the Greenland situation, because Donald Trump ain't backing down. He wants to go ahead with these tariffs that would hit the EU, well, a number of NATO, 7 NATO states and us. There's talk about, you know, retaliatory tariffs from the EU as well. There's trade bazooka over the US tech companies. Lots of talk about, could there, you know, there's meeting in Davos, could there be perhaps a G7 summit in Paris? It's what Macron has asked for in a message to Donald Trump, starting "my friend," which Donald Trump decided to post publicly. Do you think this can all be resolved without tariff war, without military invasion?
Well, I'm sure it can be resolved without a military invasion. I don't think Donald Trump wants to go to war with NATO or with Denmark particularly. I mean, he'd obviously win the war if he went to it, but it would destroy any semblance of global ability to get things done if he did. It would be a wrecking ball to cooperation between states. It's a useful reminder that Donald Trump is the President of the United States and wants to make America great again. He doesn't care about anyone else. True. And I want leaders in this country who want to make Britain great again and put our interests first. I think we should learn from Trump, and we should be more certain about our own interests rather than always putting the interests of foreign nations first.
I think a lot of my audience would be agreeing with that. So which is the leader who will make Britain great again? Is it Kemi Badenoch, the current Conservative leader, or is it Nigel Farage, the Reform leader?
Well, it's a very good question. I want the right to unite, and I think we should go into an election with a coupon, and then whichever one of them had the most members of Parliament should become Prime Minister.
So vote for your party that you want, whether it's the Conservatives or Reform, but and give them the biggest clout in any deal. But if there isn't a majority for one of those, overall majority for one of those parties, that there is already an agreement from the electorate, effectively, who voted for them, they will accept there will be some sort of coalition.
There's almost no ideological difference between the Conservative Party and Reform. It's very hard to point to anything other than minor policy differentials between Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage. And the one or two things that Nigel did disagree on, he's now changed his mind about. So he's no longer in favour of proportional representation and so forth. So,
no party is doing well in the polls.
Working together.
Jacob, you know perfectly well, no party that's doing well in the polls is ever in favour of PR, and neither is any party that gets into office. That's literally the whole thing. It's about having a voting system that helps
Indeed. You're remarkably cynical today.
I am very cynical today. Have you seen the news today? What do you make of Kemi Badenoch after 3 defections? Okay, one a former minister, you would have served with him in office, Nadeem Zahawi, one a shadow cabinet member, the shadow justice secretary, as was Robert Jenrick, and then also shadow foreign office minister as well, Andrew Rossendale. Moving over, Kemi Badenoch wrote to Tory MPs and spoke to them last night, warning them she will not tolerate any more psychodrama from shadow ministers, saying anyone who wants to undermine or destroy the party will be dealt with. Is that the best way to unite her troops at this time?
I think tonally that Robert Jenrick's comments about Mel Stride and Priti Patel were inelegant, and I think tonally this type of letter is inelegant. It is not the way I would do it. Then I'm rather an admirer of Harold Macmillan's approach to public affairs. So when he lost his whole Treasury team, he said he was going to look at the broader Commonwealth horizon and ignore little local difficulties. I think leaders need to rise above immediate spats rather than becoming cross about them. I don't think that works very well in terms of PR.
Well, especially if you're down in the doldrums in the polls. Now, we see Keir Starmer's also, I mean, he's lost even more.
Well, we are going up a bit, actually. To be fair to Kemi, sorry to interrupt, but to be fair to Kemi, she is going up a bit, and her own ratings are going up.
Absolutely.
And Nigel has stalled a bit. I mean, the polls aren't as one way as they were for most of last year.
No, 100%. I think we've all been giving Kemi Badenoch some very good ratings for PMQs, for sort. I thought she actually played a blinder in basically sacking Robert Jenrick, as she did when she found out he was going to defect, so basically pulled the carpet from under him. But it's interesting that Keir Starmer's ratings are continuing down. He's got 75% negative approval. Extraordinarily, there are still 18% of people in this country who have a positive approval of him. I'd love to know who those people are. But do you think that basically it's all to play for in the next few years before a general election? Because a lot of people are going, it's going to be a reform government, Keir Starmer's out, end of. Probably Keir Starmer may be out even after the local elections. You've been around in politics a long time, so have I in political journalism. Do you think that actually things aren't quite as settled as some people might claim?
Things are never as settled. Think of the Canadian election, where Mark Carney was able to win because Donald Trump threatened to annex Canada, and the Conservatives, who were way ahead, looked certain to get a large majority, suddenly collapsed. Yep. With things like Greenland coming into play, that's quite difficult for Nigel Farage, who's been so close to Donald Trump, when Donald Trump is actively hostile to British interests. So things can be overturned. I did have one thought as you were going through the polling. Do you think the people who still like Keir Starmer are the ones who are still in support of the former Prince Andrew? I wonder if there's any overlap between the two groups.
There are still people who give him a positive rating. I wonder if you counted up 18%, is that the number of people who are currently on welfare or in a public sector job? I mean, you know, that may well account for it all.
Are they?
Just finally, I must ask you, I mean, Nigel Farage gave the 7th of May deadline. That's the day of the local, the Scottish and Welsh elections. That's it. You have to have basically defected to reform by then, whether you're a former Tory MP, former minister. Although you're in a very noisy building site, Westminster, right now, you're no longer an MP and no longer a government minister. Have you thought at all about defecting?
I would say to you what I said to you before. You go to GB News and then I'll think about going to
Oh,
Reform.
God, let's start that again. Right, we're ending it now. So Jacob Rees-Mogg, he's always told not to do it, but he does it anyway. So Jacob Rees-Mogg, former Conservative Government Minister, thank you very much, from a very, very noisy Westminster. Apologies for that background noise. Thank you for that. Philip Ingram, it is interesting. You talk about leaders should want to make Britain great again. Also interesting to talk about that, the right to unite. Basically,
yes.
Look, we're running on our own policies. We're our own people. We want to have a formal majority. In the event that we don't, we're not going to let this so-called, I hate that I use the word progressive alliance of the left. Give me a break. I mean, they're not progressive. They're absolute extremist nutters. The Green Party is a full-on communist, net zero, grind us into the dirt, put us back in caves, not a party. Yeah. I think there's an awful lot of people who would, on the right wing, centre and right, who would go for that.
100%. And as we said, it's Thatcher's policy that Reform are following. And if ever there was someone who showed a perfect way of sitting on the fence between being Tory or being Reform, Jacob has just given us a masterclass linguistically. Yeah,
he's got one foot on each side. A lot of us thought Robert Jenrick was sitting there as well, but he definitely had to jump sides. Very interesting.
Jacob is definitely 1 foot in each camp.
Right, coming up, we're going to take a quick break, and then we are going to be talking about another a big story today, and that is about Brooklyn. No, it's not an international story involving the borough in New York. Philip Ingram's got his head in his hands right now. I've said to him, read up on this. I want your opinion on it. Yeah, Brand Beckham has exploded into 1,000 tiny pieces. We're going to talk to a PR brand expert about that coming up. First up, though, time now to find out how you could be in with a chance of winning a trip of a lifetime to San Francisco. Talk is giving away flights, a 3-night stay at a 4-star Intercontinental Hotel, and $2.5 grand spending money. Plus, small point was making tickets to the Super Bowl to top it all off. Listen to how you can enter.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 22nd January 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at TalkSport.com. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
You do not want to miss out on a chance to win the trip of a lifetime. So very good luck to you. Right now, we'll take a break. Up next, it's a Beckham mess. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good afternoon. Just the last item on the show today. We're going to move away from international affairs, and everything else going wrong in our country. We're going to be talking about what the hell is going wrong in the world of Beckham. David Beckham, of course, Sir David Beckham now, former England captain, one of the sort of style icons, constantly in the news. His wife, one of the biggest pop stars on the planet at one point. Now, a big fashion designer, Victoria Beckham. They are constantly in the news. We see pictures of them with their families, with their beautiful children all the time. But we've been hearing a lot lately about a big feud between their eldest child and themselves and his wife. Well, I don't normally bother with any of these things. However, this is now a story that has exploded onto the front pages because the claims have been made by Brooklyn Peltz Beckham that actually Brown Beckham is all a lie and the entire facade is one big PR sham. So how big is the damage done? Well, let's talk to Ria Freeman. She's an author, PR and social media expert. A very good afternoon to you, Ria.
Good afternoon to you.
I have to say, I saw the story last night. This is the sort of story, again, my husband would like, is it about sport? No, I'm not interested. Even he was going, wow, that's quite a big story. Now, I've got very little time for celebs who just put loads of pictures of their kids everywhere, and then, you know, I mean, I'm just not interested. But we all know this family. They have been a part of my generation all my entire life. I've also got very little time for the old Nepo babies. Oh, you know, Brooklyn Beckham's a chef. No, he's not. He's a little rich kid who's also married another little rich kid who's an heiress, a billionaire heiress. And I've got no interest. He hasn't done anything of any worth. But now he is very much front and centre. Tell my audience, who perhaps have been focusing on other things, what it is he's actually done overnight.
Well, I had a friend message me and said, have you seen this? And I thought, oh, yeah, there'll be some kind of slightly wet, oh no, nothing to do with me. Not at all. There was a number of very detailed Instagram stories explaining really how Brooklyn is not being controlled anymore and explaining what it's like to be a Beckham from his point of view. Things to do with his wedding, things to do with his mother dancing with him at his wedding instead of his wife, to do with wedding dresses. Quite explosive, very damning, and there's no mixed messages in this language at all.
No, I mean, a lot of us might go, oh, a dance or whatever. You know, it was claimed it would ruin the first dance. It wasn't the first dance. There's a few, apparently, recollections may vary. But the crucial thing he did say, he's accused them, his parents, of controlling his life, causing him, you know, abject anxiety, humiliating him, trying to ruin his marriage, claiming that his parents put Brand Beckham above all else while purporting to have a perfect family. He says, but I believe the truth always comes out. I mean, that is pretty damning stuff. And he's basically saying, look, I'm not being controlled by my new wife. A lot of people have been reading. I mean, this stuff's been all over social media, all over the newspapers for months now. There's been this big family rift and who's blocking who. And again, I think most of us with lives and families and jobs don't have time for all that stuff. But it's important to recognise just how big a brand Beckham is. I mean, there's 2 recent Netflix documentaries, huge on Netflix. I mean, you know, when you want to win the World Cup, or you wheel out David Beckham to do your PR for you. This is a huge brand, isn't it? What's it worth?
Oh gosh, a huge amount. I mean, millions and millions and millions. You're right. It's a massive brand. Not only are they themselves a brand, is Victoria a brand and David a brand, but obviously with Victoria you've got the fashion line, you've got, I think, a beauty line as well. David's been involved in lots of different things, and they have done an incredible job of building up their business empire, and also now becoming a lot more relatable. Through the Netflix documentaries, we get to see the personality, we get to see the kind of day-to-day. They've done an incredible job with building this brand. But it is all about family. It's about hard work. It's about fun. But family has always been a really core part of this. Yeah. And what Brooklyn said is poking quite a few holes in that.
Well, indeed. Look, I mean, a lot of us who are perhaps more in the know than some people will have heard stories about all not being well in Brand Beckham and all not being quite as it seems. Look, we've had allegations, and does anyone doubt there's allegations of Rebecca Loos about the affair David Beckham had? There are certainly some things that I've heard in my own local area about behaviour behaviour regarding, should we say, when the children's local school at one point, which apparently have been repeated at many different occasions. I don't want to go into too many details, but it's not my business really. But there's a lot of people will say this brand has always been a sham. Now, they may or may not have a very, very happy marriage. Again, not my business, that's their marriage. Why should it bother me? But they sell themselves, they sell their brand, they have all this marketing, they get these Netflix deals, they can sell all these products, they can market themselves as the face of various different campaigns and brands because of that wholesome, perfect marriage, perfect children. This has exploded. This isn't just a bit of a family rift over a wedding. And a lot of people, come on, which family hasn't had a bit of a rift over a family wedding and an argument at a wedding? Give me a break. But there's clearly a lot more to this. And this is an elder son basically saying, I want out.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge for their brand. And I think what's going to be really interesting is the next step, because I'm going to compare it to the Prince Harry fallout. I know Prince Harry wasn't the oldest brother, But there were lots of rumours, there was lots of speculation, everybody was quiet, and then it started to come out. And what obviously the royals did was they kept quiet. So are Brand, Beckham, Victoria, David, all of the children, are they going to keep quiet or are they going to argue back?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Probably advise the quietness, because otherwise you're just living out quite, everyone has got family rifts. There's always an argument going on somewhere. Yeah. It's being played out in a horribly public way.
David Beckham is currently at Davos. I don't know why he's doing at Davos, but he has not been speaking yet. We shall wait and see. Author, PR and social media expert Ria Freeman. The whole way through that, I have to point out, Philip Ingram has had his head in his hands in horror. No, I'm going to make you talk about this. I want your opinion. Whose side are you on? Are you on the Nepo babies? Are you on Brand Beckham?
No, sir. This is ridiculous. A brand is all about generating clicks to keep the brand going. So you create different stories that create sensations for idiots to click on, and then you'll exploit them through advertising that gets in there and take their money from them. Who is interested? Only sad people are interested in this.
I hate to tell you, millions and millions of people.
Well,
they are
millions,
interested. They sell papers. That's why on the front page of papers.
They make up the 18% who support Keir Starmer. That's all I can say, because it's really sad.
I absolutely love it. Again, I don't read all the ins and outs. I don't follow it. I don't know Instagram. I don't. Well, I think I am. I think I posted twice many years ago.
Beep.
But I love a little bit of celebrity shenanigans. Ian Collins, help me out here.
Well, I normally hate celebrity shenanigans, and then I saw the bit where apparently Victoria grabbed him for the first dance.
It wasn't the first dance, apparently.
Well, that's what we read, though.
Claimed,
and then I thought, God, of all the Spice Girls to get, he got that one. I mean, wow.
You'd want Scary, wouldn't you?